Chapter 214. With their hot breaths intertwined, Li Siqing buried his face in her neck and kissed her passionately, gradually moving down. The tingling sensation made Su Qianxi's whole body tense up. Even her pink toes curled up. "Did he leave?" Li Siqing suddenly asked, looking up at her with some desire in his eyes. Su Qianxi was confused and blinked. Li Siqing did not answer, but moved his hand down. Su Qianxi immediately understood, shrank her neck, and nodded with a blush. Just yesterday, a trace of satisfaction flashed in his cold eyes. When he was about to move again, someone knocked on the door. Nanny Rong's voice came, "Sir, madam, let's talk nicely. Don't fight." Su Qianxi heard that and blushed even more, feeling ashamed. They were just quarreling a moment ago, and now they ended up on the bed. Ugh, so embarrassing. Seeing her embarrassed look, Li Siqing chuckled and sucked on her exposed neck, leaving a mark, and reluctantly said, "I'll go open the door." Su Qianxi put her hand on her neck. When he got up, she immediately hid under the blanket. Nanny Rong was worried. The couple had only been together for a few days, but they were already quarreling. As elders, they were worried sick. Although Su Qianxi knew that Li Siqing would not do anything to a woman, she was still worried that Su Qianxi might say something mean and make him angry. And then, anxious, Nanny Rong couldn't help but knock a few more times. First, before she finished, the door was opened. Li Siqing's cold face was suddenly radiant, his eyes blurred, and even his neat hairstyle was a bit messy. Li Siqing's face was cold and expressionless. His eyes were blurred, and even his hair was a bit messy. "What's wrong?" Li Siqing's voice was a bit low and depressed. Nanny Rong was experienced. She knew what was going on with one look. Blushing, she immediately looked away and said, "You haven't eaten yet. Don't be too late." Hearing Nanny Rong's words, Su Qianxi was even more embarrassed. Nanny Rong must think that she was being too casual. They were just fighting. Moreover, the source of the quarrel was him. She got up from the bed, tidied herself up, and was about to go out. Li Siqing had just closed the door again. Turning around, he saw the woman trying to escape. Pressing her against the wall, he couldn't hide the lust in his eyes as he whispered, "Where are we going?" "Hungry." He stared at her like an eagle looking at its prey. Licking his lips, he said, "I'm hungry too." As he spoke, his cold eyes were filled with hunger. Su Qianxi was so naked that she turned her head away in embarrassment. When he said he was hungry, did she really mean the same thing? Why did she feel so horrified? At that moment, Li Siqing's phone rang. It was the detective sent by Cheng Yu. "Boss, the hunter has arrived at the destination and is waiting for orders." "Hunt?" "Yes." After hanging up, he saw Su Qianxi clutching her belly and looking at him pitifully. Li Siqing smiled and ruffled her hair. "Let's eat first." When Nanny Rong saw the couple walking down hand in hand, her eyes widened and she blurted out, "So fast." Li Siqing's face suddenly became gloomy. "Wan Lily. Ha ha ha, Mr. Li, so fast." Chapter 215. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, and the abandoned factory in the east of the city was deserted. In a place where there weren't many people, a van that was neither old nor new slowly drove into a place that couldn't be any more ordinary. The hunter took out a camera in the dark and connected it to Cheng Yu's remote device. "Prey in the net." "Roger that." The van gradually came to a stop, and a woman whose entire body was wrapped tightly got out of the van. Wearing a mask, a hat, glasses, and a long-sleeve chiffon shirt that was out of season and a pair of sneakers, he slowly walked to a corner. About 3 minutes later, the heavy sound of a motorcycle came. The sound of a top-of-the-line motorcycle was very eye-catching. A man got off, took off the protective cover, and whistled. Just like Tang Minjing, he did not notice that someone was ambushing him. "Hey, what are you afraid of by wrapping yourself up like this every time? It's not like anyone will find out. Cut the crap. Where are the things?" "You have no sense of humor." He threw an envelope into Tang Minjing's hand. "It's not easy for me to Photoshop these things. You have to pay me more. You will die because of money sooner or later." Tang Minjing opened the envelope and saw the photos. She smiled with satisfaction. "Where did you find this man? He's so ugly. You don't know him? He is the most popular guy on Weibo, and he likes to post these kinds of photos in bed. I just spent some money to buy some that have not been leaked yet, and then change the faces of these women. Well, good technique. I can't tell that it's Photoshop at all. Of course. Where's the thing you want to add? Here. Remember to add it. Then, Li Xiqing will not be able to deny it. Okay, I will add it when I get back. Remember to pay me. I can't do without you. You have to know that I am risking my life to do this for you. Remember last time, Lao Jin was tortured by Li Xiqing. If this is exposed, I will die a worse death than him. Are you afraid? Then I will ask someone else to do it. Come on, we have been working together for so long. Just give me 1 or 2 million, and I will do it for you. Blackmail? 1 or 2 million. The hunter thought that Tang Minjing would turn around and leave, but she said, I will need you. Just do your job well. But are you sure you'll be safe? Don't worry. In terms of hacking skills, I can guarantee that no one in the whole of China is better than me except for that Z. That's good. Well done. Okay. The two quickly said goodbye. Tang Minjing opened the door of the van and sat in the back seat. The man put on his hood and prepared to leave. Relieved, the hunter put the camera away, pressed the pause button, and put the camera away carefully. However, just as he was putting down the camera, his elbow accidentally touched the box next to him. The broken box quickly fell down, and in an instant, a large number of things fell down with a crash. Tang Minjing was startled, and so was the man. He shouted, Who's there? Show yourself. The hunter, greatly frightened, rose and ran as soon as he saw them coming. Tang Minjing was so scared that her face turned pale. She shouted, Stop! Quick, chase after him. Chapter 216. The hunter had never been so embarrassed. He thought that the task was completed and he could leave. Unexpectedly, at the last moment, he was tricked by himself. Running at the fastest speed in his life, the hunter did not dare to look back, but the sound of the motorcycle was getting closer and closer. The east of the city was a remote industrial area. After running out, there were very few cars coming and going. Seeing the sound of the motorcycle getting louder and louder, the hunter panicked even more. In the process of running, the hunter turned around and threw his precious camera at the man on the motorcycle. Get it back to you. The man on the motorcycle was shocked. He did not expect this guy to be so ruthless. He tilted his head down, and the camera flew past his helmet. He hurriedly got out of the car and found the camera. However, he found that the place where the memory card should have been was empty. There was only a broken camera left. What the F***? Throwing the broken camera, the man on the motorcycle got in the car again and chased the hunter. Stepping on the gas, the distance between the hunter and him was shortened in an instant. What to do? What to do? The hunter felt that he was about to suffocate, and his legs were terribly sore. This feeling of extreme life and death was constantly stimulating his nerves. Can't stop, can't stop. Just after that, a sports car suddenly drifted and stopped in front of him. The door was opened, and a female voice came. Get in. Without much time to think, the hunter jumped on the door, slammed it shut, and shouted, Hurry up! Chunyu was not slow. She changed the automatic gear to the maximum and shouted, Sit tight. Her opponent had a superb motorcycle, and her was just an ordinary four-wheeled sports car. At this time, she could only compete with her skills. The hunter was about to respond, but suddenly he was almost flying, lying on an airbag in front of him. Chungyu's speed was so fast, and behind the car, the man on the motorcycle was chasing her. The speed of the superb motorcycle was far faster than their car. What to do? The hunter was full of guilt. He could only blame himself for being too careless. Looking ahead, he looked at Chunyu and asked, Miss Chung, do you have a tissue? Chunyu was a little impatient and shouted, Find it yourself. The hunter did not dare to say more. He rummaged in the car and finally found a box of tissues, reaching out to open the window. Chunyu was a little angry. Are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing? The hunter ignored Chungyu's roar, tore up a few pieces of paper towels, opened the window, and scattered them. The biker followed closely behind them. He was extremely fast and was caught off guard by the paper towel. He shook his head in disgust. She suddenly knew what he was going to do. When a man's speed slowed down slightly, the car drifted, deliberately bumped, rubbed, and got stuck. Bang! There was a loud noise, and the man on the motorcycle swayed from the impact. However, with his driving skills, he didn't fall. When he steadied himself, he quickly went to check if his beloved bike was damaged. By the time he came back to his senses, the bike had already pulled away from him, and its speed was even faster. If he continued to chase, he definitely wouldn't be able to catch up. Fu asterisk K. The man on the motorcycle cursed and took out his phone to call Tang Minjing. They ran away. How could that be? Is this how you do things? I spent so much money on you, and this is how you treat me? A shrill voice came from the other side of the phone. The biker picked his ears impatiently. What else can I do? She's already gone. What else can I do? Chapter 2:17. I've been discovered. When he received Chung Yu's call, it was already past 7 p.m. He put down his chopsticks, and his eyes became even colder. What do you mean? Chung Yu briefly told him what had happened, and then said, Fortunately, the hunter got the memory card back. Get to me. Yes, sir. When Chung Yu and the hunter arrived at the house, it was almost 9 p.m. Su Qianxi was sitting on the sofa, playing on the computer, while Li Xiqing was dealing with unfinished work. Hearing the doorbell, Su Qianxi got up to open the door, and Li Xiqing stopped working. As soon as they entered the door, the hunter felt a little unable to face the boss, shrinking his neck and standing far away. Chung Yu directly handed the memory card to Li Xiqing. Using Su Qianxi's computer, Li Xiqing opened the video file in the memory card. The more he watched, the more gloomy his face became. Su Qianxi poured water and gave each of them a cup. Curiously, she came over. She happened to hear what the man said. Remember what Li Xiqing did to Lao Jin last time. Li Xiqing gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. His eyes were cold and full of malice. Lao Jin. He could only think of one person with the surname Jin. So, that Jin guy was very likely sent by Tang Minjing? His first child with Su Qianxi, was killed by Tang Minjing? Li Xiqing looked to the side. Su Qianxi's face was pale, and her lips were pale. Biting her lower lip, she stared at the computer screen. Seeming to feel Li Xiqing's gaze, Su Qianxi looked over. Seeing his deep eyes, her heart raced. Li Xiqing found that she was looking at him with expectation, hesitation, and struggle, but no surprise. It's her. Su Qianxi's voice was a bit hoarse. She played an important role in our child's death. You already knew? Li Xiqing's face darkened. Why didn't you tell me? If he had known, Tang Minjing would never have lived so freely. I just found out, and Su Qianxi looked down and chuckled self-deprecatingly. Would you believe me if I told you? Li Xiqing's expression darkened. Staring at her, he asked, why not? Su Qianxi looked up at him, feeling complicated. Why would he believe it? Would she rush up to him and tell him loudly that Tang Minjing was actually the murderer of their child, and that Tang Minjing was up to no good? Would he believe it? He wouldn't believe it. She had done this kind of thing before, hadn't she? He had been sick of this kind of thing countless times, hadn't he? In her previous life, she was suspected and spurned by everyone because of this. In this life, she didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. It was good enough that he didn't say anything, wasn't it? Seeing that she did not speak, Li Xiqing's eyes darkened, and he said, You are my woman. Why wouldn't I believe you? Su Qianxi's heart was like a bell, suddenly ringing and lingering. His woman. He actually said that she was his woman again? This was the second time. The first time was when she was being bullied by those rich ladies, and he had appeared to protect her. The second time was under such circumstances. So, was he serious? Could she take it seriously? Once this identity label was attached, she would never want to take it off again, forever. At this time, Li Xiqing's phone rang. There were only 2 words, Luo Zhan. Chapter 2:18. Li Xiqing's heart suddenly sank. He opened the page as quickly as he could and clicked on the first trending topic. It was a striking title. Li Xiqing's wife is not satisfied, meets male prostitute late at night. Insatiable desire? Meet a male prostitute late at night? Nonsense. Li Xiqing slapped the table. Li Xiqing's wife has no desire at all. Chung Yu suddenly realized something and looked at Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi suddenly blushed and tugged at Li Xiqing. On the other side of the phone, Luo Zhan also choked on his saliva. After a while, he said, "Bro, there's a lot of information in your words." Li Xiqing was speechless. "But I've already deleted all the photos and replaced them with your wedding photos. There's only the title, so it shouldn't be much of topic." Sure enough, when he scrolled down and clicked on the pictures, he saw that they were all refined wedding dresses. Su Qianxi's facial features were extremely beautiful. When Li Xiqing took this set of wedding photos, his face was always cold. If Grandpa did not force him, she had no doubt that he would definitely turn around and leave. "However, why do you have this kind of picture?" "Oh, I took it from your wife's computer." Luo Zhan didn't care. Su Qianxi's eyes widened. This guy had hacked into her computer? F***CK. Can't you have some privacy? Moreover, was it really okay to say such a wicked thing out loud? Li Xiqing scrolled and found that the topic was from 10 minutes ago. There must be someone behind it for it to become a trending topic so quickly. "Who is it? Did you find anything?" "Of course, I'm Z." The hunter's eyes widened. "No way, really?" Luo Zhan heard another person's voice and immediately got angry. "Are you on speakerphone?" "Yes." "Damn, who's next to him?" "My wife, my assistant, and a stupid hunter." Li Xiqing's fingers flew over the keyboard, and he quickly posted. Luo Zhan still wanted to say more, but suddenly exclaimed, "You actually posted on Weibo. My wife will be meeting on October 15th. All major media are welcome to visit." F***CK. You even posted a picture of her kissing. You are declaring war. Li Xiqing curled his lips. Yes, he was declaring war. Tang Minjing had opened Weibo happily, wanting to see the effect of her money. He believed that now. Su Qianxi must have become a street rat. She wondered what Li Xiqing's expression would be like now. However, after looking around, he could only find a topic about Su Qianxi, Mrs. Li's fan meet. Clicking in, the first post was Li Xiqing's Weibo. The attached picture was a beautiful picture of a kiss. The quality of the picture was not very high, so it must have been taken with a cell phone. The background was the blue sea. Su Qianxi was wearing a red off-shoulder gown, blushing. She was holding Li Xiqing, and he was kissing her lips passionately. Tang Minjing's breathing became shorter and shorter. She screamed and smashed the computer. "Bastard, bastard." Mrs. Tang immediately ran in and yelled, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Seeing her mother, Tang Minjing immediately burst into tears. "Mom, what should I do? What should I do? I can't wait for that day. I'm going to tell the world now that the baby in my belly belongs to Li Xiqing." Chapter 219. After Li Xiqing posted on Weibo, Chengyu received a call. Chengyu's English was very fluent, and Su Qianxi was secretly shocked. Combined with what had just happened, Chengyu's reaction and processing speed were also amazing. No wonder she could stay with Li Xiqing for so long. In her previous lifetime, she stayed with Li Xiqing for 8 years. After they got married and had children, Li Xiqing was reluctant to let her go and paid her a lot to stay. Chengyu's ability was not bad. After answering the phone, Chengyu looked a bit gloomy and called boss. "Yes, something happened in the U.S.? Yes, Mr. Stay is not in good health. He hopes you can go there in a few days." "Mr. Stay?" Su Qianxi recognized the name. When Li Xiqing was studying abroad, Mr. Stay was his mentor. Because he lost his son in his middle age, he almost treated Li Xiqing as his own son. Occasionally, when Li Xiqing had time, he would go to the U.S. to visit the old man. Su Qianxi remembered that in her previous lifetime, the old man's death seemed to be around this time. Li Xiqing was silent for a moment and looked at Su Qianxi. "You go," Su Qianxi said before he said anything. "The old man can't wait. The sooner, the better." "Okay." Li Xiqing stood up and kissed her on the forehead. "I'll be back as soon as possible." "Boss, do you need me to go with you?" Chengyu asked. "No, you stay in Kingstown. You have full control of the company. If you can't solve it, call me." "Yes." In addition, follow up on the press conference. "Okay. Thank you." Chengyu heard that and shivered. This. Big Boss was actually saying this to her? Chengyu could not accept it and immediately said, "Of course." Su Qianxi pursed her lips and said, "I'll go pack for you. Let's go together." Chengyu and the hunter were a bit embarrassed, and the hunter said, "Then I'll go first." Chengyu nodded. I'll take you to the airport. Upstairs, she dragged out the suitcase and said, remember to eat on time. It may be a bit cold in the United States now. I will put some thick clothes for you. Remember to change into them when you are cold. And before she finished, she realized that the man next to her had bent down and hugged her from behind. Su Qianxi's face suddenly burned. What else? Li Xiqing's voice was a bit low. Say it all at once. As he spoke, he turned her around. His eyes and brows were so gentle that she couldn't help feeling a ripple in her heart. Su Qianxi blushed. Thinking that she would not see him for a few days, she put her arms around his waist and looked up. Also, come back soon. With a smile in his eyes, he pecked her lips. Yes, honey. Hearing his playful words, she blushed even more. Pushing him away, she turned around and started to pack her clothes. She was very efficient and quickly booked a ticket to New York. The nearest flight was 2 hours away. She drove the car over and waited for more than 10 minutes before she saw Su Qianxi walk Li Xiqing out. However, when he reached the door, he suddenly stopped, put down his luggage, took her in his arms, and pressed her against the door, unwilling to let go of her. Chengyu blushed, and her heart beat faster. She wanted to cry, but had no tears. Chapter 220. After kissing for a long time, he reluctantly let her go. Lock the door and windows. Be safe at home. Okay, when Nanny Rome comes tomorrow, ask her to move the things in your room to our room. Okay, stay at home and wait for me. Okay, I'm leaving. Okay. He reached out and rubbed her hair affectionately before picking up his luggage and walking to her car. Su Qianxi watched him leave, feeling sweet and empty. She entered the door and locked it. She went back to her room with her laptop and found there were several missed calls. Liu Yihan had 2, and Song Yifan had 3. She called Liu Yihan back immediately, but no one picked up. She hung up and called Song Yifan, who quickly responded, Hello, Su Qianxi. Uncle Song, are you free? I have something to talk to you about. What is it? Are you free on the 12th? How about going on a music tour with me in the capital? The capital? Yes, probably on Friday afternoon and back on Sunday afternoon, which is the 14th, Song Yifan said. Fearing that she would refuse, he quickly added, If you don't have time, it's okay. Sure. Su Qianxi interrupted him. Li Xiqing is not at home, and I'm bored at home. Really? Song Yifan looked surprised. I don't have classes on Friday afternoon. What time? How do I get there? 3 in the afternoon. I'll book a ticket for you. Okay, that's settled then. See you then. Hanging up, Su Qianxi curled her lips. She did not know if it was an illusion, but Song Yifan seemed to be trying to please her. Was he also doubting her? That she was very likely to be his daughter? Lying on the bed, Su Qianxi stared at the white sky in a daze. Father, what a distant word. When he arrived at school the next day, many people looked at him differently. Su Qianxi turned a blind eye to the eyes around her. Before class, she picked up her phone and opened Weibo. She didn't know it until she opened it, but when she did, she found that the so-called male prostitute incident had long been forgotten, and the topic of hashtag Mrs. Li's meet and greet had become a trending topic. A girl deliberately sat next to Su Qianxi, glanced at her phone, and suddenly touched a pen next to Su Qianxi. Pata! The ballpoint pen fell to the ground, and the girl immediately bent down to pick it up. She quickly apologized. I'm sorry, classmate, I didn't mean it. Su Qianxi tilted her head and smiled at her. It's okay. The girl pretended to be surprised and exclaimed, You are Su Qianxi? Yes. Oh, I'm so honored to see the legendary Mrs. Li. I heard that you're going to hold a meet and greet in a few days. I wish you success. This is too fake. Suddenly, a sharp voice came from behind him, full of disdain. If you want to participate, just say it. What are you pretending for? The girl was a bit embarrassed and looked at Su Qianxi. She thought that Su Qianxi would be as cold as a few days ago, but unexpectedly, Su Qianxi just smiled and said, If you have nothing to do, come and participate. As soon as she said that, the eyes of many girls in the class brightened, and people quickly gathered around. Su Qianxi took out a stack of invitations from her bag. I didn't prepare a few days ago, so I didn't invite you. These are the invitations. You can bring your partners. The pile of invitations was like a piece of fat meat. In this group of hungry wolves who had been eyeing it for a long time, it was soon divided up. Su Qianxi always had a smile on her lips, and deep in her bright eyes, the light of wisdom flickered. Women were the most gossipy creatures, no one else. In this war without gunpowder, the loser would easily lose their reputation. Chapter 2:21. Perhaps because of the invitation, Su Qianxi was invited to the cafeteria by a lot of girls after class. This was the first time she had tried to interact with her classmates. At the beginning, Su Qianxi felt a bit awkward. However, after a few days, she actually felt good. Time flew, and it was Friday. After class at noon, Su Qianxi waved her hand and declined her classmates' invitations. Yang was already waiting at the door. Su Qianxi went home to pack her luggage. After eating something, she looked at the time. It was not yet 1 p.m. However, when she was about to leave for the airport, she received a surprising invitation. Su Qianxi looked at Tang Minjing, who was obviously rounder than before. She slowly stirred the coffee in front of her, but did not drink it. She just looked at her quietly. Tang Minjing took a sip of the freshly squeezed juice in front of her and seemed to sigh. I did not expect that we could still sit face to face like this. I really miss the old days. I don't know when we started to change. Hearing that, Su Qianxi curled her lips. She had been hurt so badly in her previous lifetime. If she did not stay away from her, would she wait for her to frame her? Su Qianxi did not speak. I looked at her with my dark eyes, as if I was looking at a retard. Tang Minjing could not stand the look in her eyes. She could not keep her composure anymore. She leaned forward and said, "Today I asked you to come out to tell you a piece of great news." Su Qianxi looked at her. The look in her eyes changed from that of a retard to one of pity. She sighed and said, "What is it?" That tone, that expression, it was extremely helpless. Tang Minjing was suddenly angry. Obviously, Su Qianxi had not done anything. So far, she had only said one sentence, but it had really pissed her off. Seeing that Tang Minjing was obviously angry, Su Qianxi smiled and said, "You asked me to come out on this occasion. It must be something big, right?" This was a coffee shop, but it was not quiet at all. People were coming and going. As long as something happened, it would be spread quickly. Seeing that Tang Minjing finally fell into the trap, Tang Minjing smiled with satisfaction. This was Su Qianxi. Nothing big. It's just that maybe I was one step ahead of you. 2 months ago, when I was on a business trip with Brother Seeching in Australia, we did it. Although she already knew what she was going to say, when Su Qianxi heard this, she still felt a sharp pain in her heart. The hand holding the coffee spoon slightly tightened. That phone call had always been a thorn in her heart. But he had said it, hadn't he? She was his first and only woman, wasn't she? So, she should believe him, right? Su Qianxi's movement was very subtle, but Tang Minjing caught it clearly. With a happy smile, she said, "When Brother Seeching is in bed, he is really different from usual. He is very passionate. Is he the same to you?" Su Qianxi's hand that was stirring the coffee paused. "Don't be angry, you can't be angry." Tang Minjing's intention was too obvious. She wanted to irritate her on such an occasion. If it were in the past, Su Qianxi would have immediately jumped up, picked up the coffee spoon, and poured it on Su Qianxi's face. She might even have grabbed Su Qianxi's hair and scolded her for being shameless. At this time, many people were staring at her. Mrs. Li. If such news was spread, then Li Seeching and even the entire Li family and the Li consortium would be pushed into the teeth of the storm. Chapter 2:22. Su Qianxi knew that she was not particularly smart. However, she was definitely not stupid. Facing Tang Minjing's gaze, Su Qianxi looked unexpectedly calm. She seemed to be sarcastic. Really, her voice was very calm, as if she really did not care. Tang Minjing did not see what she had expected and felt a bit uncertain. She suddenly felt that she could not see through Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi was getting smarter and smarter. Obviously, this was not a good thing for Tang Minjing. No one spoke again. After a minute or two, the atmosphere was indescribable. Tang Minjing finally couldn't stand it anymore. She seemed to be struggling and said, "Su Qianxi, I think it's better to tell you something." "What is it?" "I am pregnant, and the baby is Brother Seeching's. Su Qianxi looked slightly surprised, put down the coffee spoon, and looked at her. Seeing that she finally had a reaction, Tang Minjing continued. Now, it is almost 3 months, and the baby already has a heartbeat. It is a boy. Families like the Li family attach great importance to their children. They certainly do not want their children to be illegitimate. So, Su Qianxi, can you please help me? I know you must be very angry now, but please don't be impulsive. Brother Seeching also cares about this child, but he does not want you to be sad, so he asked me to tell you. He hopes that you can let him go. Su Qianxi did not speak, but the more she listened, the more she felt it was funny. This woman was really unscrupulous in order to annoy her. Seeing the sneer on Su Qianxi's lips, Tang Minjing said tentatively, You know, he said that he has never touched you. I'm the only one he loves. When she said this, Tang Minjing stared at her. Sure enough, hearing this, Su Qianxi's eyes flickered slightly. It was just a flash, but it was real. Tang Minjing was ecstatic. Really? Did that mean she was the only one Li Seeching had slept with? God, what a surprise. Thinking of that night in Australia, his voice and his body, Tang Minjing's heart could not help racing. She couldn't help saying again, You know, he likes to enter me from behind, and it hurts me every time. However, since he knew I was pregnant, he has been much gentler. Brother Seeching is really a good man. And he told me last time that Brother Seeching doesn't like you very much and can't accept you. That's why he came back to me again and again. Every word made Su Qianxi's heart ache. She didn't know. She really didn't know. What position did he like? What attitude did he have? However, she could not believe what Tang Minjing said. In his previous life, he had been cheated and treated as a fool. At least, she knew that Li Seeching was not one to lie. So, he wouldn't lie to her, right? Su Qianxi convinced herself, and her eyes became colder and colder. She crossed her arms and looked at Tang Minjing with a sneer. Do you know what delusional disorder is? This was paranoia. 80% of the women in Kingstown want to bear my husband's children. You have seduced him so many times. If he likes you even a little bit, he will not be able to resist. And Su Qianxi stood up, approached her, and whispered, What he hates the most is the position of entering me from behind. Seeing Tang Minjing's face instantly darkened, Su Qianxi felt relieved and said in a low voice, That way, he will feel like he is sleeping with a bitch. It is very perverted, don't you think? Tang Minjing was furious and roared. What do you mean? This Su Qianxi dared to call her a bitch. Su Qianxi stepped back, smiled elegantly, picked up her purse, and said gently, I still have something to do. I'll go. Whether he hated it or not, she did not know. However, she did it on purpose. Chapter 223. Tang Minjing was so angry that she wanted to catch up. Su Qianxi waved her hand and said, Waiter, she's paying. The waiter immediately stopped her and asked her for the bill. After leaving the cafe, Yang drove her directly to the airport. Song Yifan had been standing at the gate of the airport. Seeing Su Qianxi getting out of the car, he let out a sigh of relief and went up to her. You're here. Yes, I was busy, so I came late. Why are you waiting here? The sun is so bright. Song Yifan smiled, feeling a bit embarrassed. He quickly went to the back seat to help her with her luggage. Yang was a bit surprised, but at the same time, he felt a sense of crisis. This old man couldn't be thinking of hitting on her madam, right? No, he had to tell his boss. After Su Qianxi and Song Yifan entered the airport, Yang immediately called Li Seeching. Song Yifan's band was not only famous in China, but also internationally. They were undoubtedly proud of themselves. Although they did not say it out loud, they were still a bit dissatisfied with Song Yifan's sudden request to invite a young girl to the concert. However, the moment they saw Su Qianxi, they all understood why Song Yifan would invite her to such an important concert. This girl and that photo. After entering the airport, Su Qianxi met Song Yifan's teammates one by one. She found that they were unexpectedly easy to get along with. When they arrived at the capital, it was dusk. The air was gray and hazy, completely different from the green and fresh air of Kingstown. As soon as they got off the plane, someone came to welcome them. Although it was said to be a welcome, It was actually a social event. Song Yifan knew that Li Xiqing had protected Su Qianxi very well and probably rarely attended such events. He proposed to take her to rest, but Su Qianxi declined. After 3 rounds of drinks, the host looked at Su Qianxi and asked, "This is Su Qianxi, brought here by our team leader." Su Qianxi? That person was obviously not a caveman. Recently, the thing between Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing had been a hot topic, so he had already recognized her. "Mrs. Li? I am." Su Qianxi nodded. "Nice to meet you. I didn't expect you to come to the Imperial City. I'm really flattered." What surprised him the most was that Song Yifan and Su Qianxi actually had a relationship. Song Yifan was not married yet. This relationship was intriguing. Follow Uncle Song to broaden your horizons. Oh. The man smiled and quickly changed the topic. It was already 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening when the social interaction ended. Song Yifan booked a luxury suite for Su Qianxi, which made his teammates who could only live in single rooms sigh. Of course, she did not know about her special treatment. After a slight surprise, she settled down. The next day, Song Yifan took her to the Imperial Grand Theater. After looking around, she felt a bit itchy, so she borrowed a backup instrument from the violinist in the band and began to play along with them. Her first favorite instrument was the piano, and her second was the violin. At the end of the song, he realized that the music around him had stopped, and everyone was looking at him. Chapter 2:24. The people in the concert hall were all their own people, and each of them was a master. Su Qianxi blushed at the compliment. "Really good." Song Yifan walked over. "How long have you been studying?" 3 years. For years. Of course, it was learned by the previous generation. To be able to reach this level after learning for 3 to 4 years, talent. As expected of, the zither player chuckled and looked around, but she didn't point it out. Everyone around her knew what she meant. Song Yifan heard what the violinist said and blushed. "Another one? Let's play together." "All right." After one song, Song Yifan and Su Qianxi had a tacit understanding, as if they had worked together before. It was hard to believe that they were in sync. "All right." The violinist clapped her hands. "That's great. If it wasn't for the fact that Brother Song isn't married, I would have thought that you were his daughter." Su Qianxi heard that and glanced at Song Yifan. "Don't talk nonsense." Although he said that, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. It was obvious that he liked to hear this. Everyone present knew Song Yifan very well. Someone immediately shouted, "Now that you mention it, it does look like him, especially the shape of the face and the shape of the mouth." "Look." Yes, it really does look like it." "Look at this. Doesn't it look like the photo in Brother Song's wallet?" "Yes, could it be?" Everyone turned to look at Zhang Xian. Su Qianxi smiled and did not speak. Afraid that she would be upset, Song Yifan said, "Don't say that. Her mother's surname is Su." "Follow my mother's surname? Where's your dad?" Song Yifan glared at someone who had a big mouth. She didn't care and said frankly, "I don't have a father. My mother left me at the gate of the orphanage when I was a child." "Ah, so miserable." "That's great. You don't have a father. Brother Song has always wanted a daughter. Why don't you take him as your godfather?" "Bah, your godfather. Don't you know that godfather is very ambiguous nowadays? Our Brother Song is a very good person. If you want to call someone, you should call him godfather." Come, call me godfather." "Call him godfather, call him godfather." The jeering got louder and louder. Song Yifan was a bit annoyed and said, "That's enough. Qianxi is my guest this time. The concert is about to begin. Stop making a scene." "Guests? Does that mean they will perform on stage?" Someone's eyes lit up and asked. "Qianxi's violin skills are no worse than Anna's. Why don't you try?" "What do you think, Qianxi?" Looking at them, Su Qianxi was a bit nervous. "Will it bring you trouble?" "I'm afraid I can't do it well. Moreover, in this kind of occasion, shouldn't it be especially important? If this thing was destroyed by her, what should she do?" "No, don't be nervous. When the time comes, just follow my rhythm," the violinist said with a face full of righteousness. "Don't worry, you're pretty good. I have high hopes for you." To be honest, she also wanted to give it a try, even in his dreams. In her past life, it was impossible for her to have such an opportunity. Now, should she seize it? It's okay. Song Yi-fun looked at her. If you're nervous, don't go on stage today. There is a public performance tomorrow morning. I'll go. Su Qianxi blushed, her eyes sparkling. I want to give it a try. Can I? Seeing the nervousness and desire in her eyes, Song Yi-fun smiled and naturally reached out to rub her head like he was coaxing a child. Silly girl, of course. Dash. Chapter 225. The intimate gesture made Su Qianxi's neck stiffen. Looking up, she saw Song Yi-fun's eyes shining with love. He really treated her as his daughter. Su Qianxi felt something hit her heart. An indescribable feeling slowly spread from the depths of her heart to her eyes. Father. A strange name. She had been longing for it for more than 20 years. Su Qianxi did not resist his gesture and nodded. Seeing such a scene, everyone looked at each other and smiled. No one dared to say anything more. In the concert hall of the Capitol Grand Theater, the audience was all senior leaders and ambassadors from other countries. After listening to the performance, there was a thunderous applause. Su Qianxi could hear everyone praising Song Yi-fun, even when she was backstage. Was such a person really her father? In October, it was a bit cold in Kingstown at night. After Li Weiya and Tang Mengqing finished the hot pot, they walked back to their dorm, talking and laughing. Suddenly, Tang Mengqing received a call. I am in the woods on the left side of the school. Come here. Someone. Tang Mengqing heard it and turned around. Weiya, you go back first. I have something to do. But it's almost time. You go back first. It's fine. Okay. Li Weiya turned around, but the more she thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. It was so late. Did Tang Mengqing have a boyfriend again? Last time, her miscarriage had caused a stir in several families and the school, which had greatly damaged her reputation. She had tried so hard to suppress it, and she hoped that it would not go wrong again. Thinking about it, Li Weiya still followed her. In case she did not get along with the boy, she could go up and make peace with him. Unexpectedly, after Tang Mengqing walked into the woods, she sneaked up to a van. The van looked very ordinary, but for a girl from a rich family like Li Weiya, it was a bit shabby. Tang Mengqing's boyfriend turned out to be this kind of person? What a lack of self-respect. Li Weiya was a bit angry, followed her, and found that Tang Mengqing had gotten into the van. The window of the passenger seat was not closed. When Li Weiya was hiding next to the van, she heard a familiar voice. Ask Li Weiya to give this to Su Qianxi. Tang Mengqing? How could it be her? If she wanted to see Tang Mengqing, did she have to be so sneaky? Tang Mengqing asked. Lipstick? Why did you give her lipstick? That bitch is so disgusting. This is a mixture of aphrodisiac. As long as she puts it on, it will inevitably go into her mouth. The effect time is about an hour, and I am afraid the press conference is only halfway through. If she does a striptease in front of everyone, don't you think it will be wonderful? Tang Mengqing's voice was cold and resentful. Her vicious words made Li Weiya shrink slightly. Li Weiya was stunned. Tang Mengqing usually looked gentle and pretty, and she was very nice to people. Moreover, wasn't her relationship with second cousin brother very good? Why do you want to harm second sister-in-law? The information contained in these words was too much for her to handle. It was too terrifying. Tang Mengqing was a bit excited. Really? My gosh, sister, you are so awesome. I wonder what Su Qianxi will do if she really loses face in front of those distinguished guests. Even old man Li won't be able to protect her. Chapter 226. The last concert was in the morning. After promising Song Yi-fun that she would go on stage, Su Qianxi got up early and put on some light makeup. She picked out a dress that she could wear to the event. Su Qianxi thought that today's concert would be similar to the one last night. However, when she arrived, she realized that it was a music conference. The people who came were all musicians that Su Qianxi had only seen on TV and in the news in her previous lifetime. So many big shots. When Su Qianxi followed Song Yi-fun's band in, she felt like she was dreaming. Song Yi-fun greeted them one by one. Many foreign friends gave him warm hugs and kissed him on the cheek. Many people noticed Su Qianxi's face. Song Yi-fun only said that she was a young man and wanted to broaden his horizons. However, inadvertently, Su Qianxi seemed to feel someone looking at her. Looking sideways, she found it was another acquaintance. It was a tall man wearing a sapphire suit and a ruby bow tie. His tall figure strode over, looking gentle and elegant. "Long time no see, Mrs. Li Bo Xiao." Su Qianxi was a bit surprised, but soon felt relieved. Bo Xiao had already made a name for himself in the music conference. Since even she could come, why couldn't he? "Mrs. Li, you still remember me. I am honored." Bo Xiao raised his glass and looked at Song Yifan. "Mr. Song, so you two know each other." Song Yifan's kind smile faded the moment he saw Bo Xiao. "I did not expect that you two know each other. I've met him once." Song Yifan curled his lips and said, "Not a good thing." Rarely seeing Song Yifan so sharp, Su Qianxi could not help but look at him a few more times. Bo Xiao spread his hands and looked innocent, but he still maintained a gentleman's smile. "It seems that Mr. Song has some misunderstanding about me. May I know why?" Song Yifan did not speak, but the female violinist next to him said in a slightly dissatisfied voice, "I heard that Mr. Bo already has a fiancé, but you still have a girlfriend. This really makes people doubt your style. Su Qianxi is married, and I hope you can behave yourself." Bo Xiao felt a little innocent. A helpless smile flashed across his deep, dark brown eyes. "I'm so wronged. Has the outside world already spread rumors about me to such an unbearable level?" "Mrs. Li, Bo Xiao, you are here." A pretty figure came up and took Bo Xiao's arm. "I have been looking for you for a long time." "You." When the girl saw Su Qianxi, she paused and her eyes darkened. Su Qianxi was a bit scared, but she still nodded with a smile. "So you have friends. The exchange is about to begin. Let's go back to our seats." Bo Xiao looked down at the girl beside him. His eyes were no different from when he looked at other people. He replied lightly, "Okay." Then he raised his eyes and introduced, "This is my fiancée, Rong Anna." Rong Anna greeted everyone with a smile, but when she looked at Su Qianxi, she. Chapter 227. Bo Xiao glanced at her and said softly, "My dear, it's an illusion." Rong Anna frowned, turned around, and found that Su Qianxi was surrounded by a group of people. With a smile on her face and light makeup, her facial features looked more delicate and soft, like the girl next door. Seeming to feel that Rong Anna was looking at her, Su Qianxi quickly followed her gaze and smiled at her. Rong Anna raised an eyebrow and chuckled. "It's really an illusion. They do look a bit similar, but there are many people who look like this. It is inevitable that you will have this illusion." Yes. At the music conference, many famous artists would perform on stage. While playing, Su Qianxi could not help but feel nervous. Before they went on stage, it was Bo Xiao. Bo Xiao and Rong Anna went on stage together. Bo Xiao was playing the piano, and Rong Anna was playing the violin. The song was melodious and meaningful. It was one of Bo Xiao's favorite songs. Obviously, the cooperation with Rong Anna was not so good, because Su Qianxi had heard him play better. Finally, it was their turn. Su Qianxi's mind was blank the whole time. Originally, she was worried that she would be embarrassed because of nervousness. Fortunately, the audience was very enthusiastic, and no one seemed to notice her sudden appearance. The conference soon ended, and Song Yifan's band undoubtedly became the hottest topic. Su Qianxi silently hid behind Song Yifan, quietly being a beautiful woman. After saying goodbye to the famous artists at the airport, she was able to get on the plane back to Kingstown. Today was October 14th. We are back. We will arrive at Kingstown at 5 p.m. Yes, according to the original plan. Out of the airport, Su Qianxi declined Song Yifan's offer to take her back and stood at the gate, waiting for Yang. However, 10 minutes later, he had not arrived yet. Su Qianxi's phone rang. It turned out that the car had broken down for some reason and could not move on the highway. Su Qianxi had to find a taxi herself. The airport was not far from the villa area, only half an hour's drive. However, the driver took her for more than 40 minutes. Seeing the increasing amount on the meter, Su Qianxi suddenly understood something. "Sir, please hurry up. It's too late." Okay. In the end, the driver did not take her home, but left her at the intersection a few streets away from the villa area. The reason was that he ran out of gas. She was annoyed and angry. Dragging her suitcase, she resigned herself to her fate and walked home. It was already past 6 o'clock in the evening. It was the beginning of autumn, and the sky darkened earlier and earlier. Su Qianxi walked back, and it was already dusk. It was dinner time, and there were not many people on the street. As she walked, she felt someone was following her. His footsteps paused for a moment as he looked back. There was nothing out of the ordinary. She turned back and continued, but the feeling became stronger. Su Qianxi became vigilant, picked up her phone, and dialed 110, ready for any emergency. Dragging her luggage, when she turned the corner, she suddenly felt a rush of breath behind her. Then she was hugged, and the strong smell of alcohol hit her. Su Qianxi at Hua, at Su and Qiu King Su and Qi and at. Chapter 228. Su Qianxi was pushed to the ground, and her white and delicate skin was quickly scratched. Hearing the clanking sound of the belt, Su Qianxi was even more shocked. What did he want to do? She couldn't be so unlucky. Enduring the pain, Su Qianxi got up from the ground and rushed to the entrance of the alley. However, the drunkard's reaction was extremely fast. Dragging her by her clothes, he threw her into the alley. The alley was very dirty, and there were glass shards on the ground. Su Qianxi was thrown into the alley, feeling a burning pain on her back. However, Su Qianxi reacted quickly. Picking up a larger piece of glass next to her, she threw it at the man. "Get out of my way!" The drunkard's face was red, and his face was covered with a long beard. His clothes looked a bit old and white. Seeing the long piece of glass in Su Qianxi's hand, he chuckled. "Little girl, you are so tasty." His voice was dry and hoarse, as if he had not drunk water for decades. It was extremely unpleasant to hear. Slowly approaching, Su Qianxi's body trembled, and her voice trembled. "Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I will kill you." Every woman says that, but in the end, they still get F***ed. Be good, and I can be gentler. Su Qianxi was scared, trembling slightly. Waving the long piece of glass in her hand, she tried to drive him away. However, this drunkard was obviously a habitual offender. With a lewd smile, he suddenly jumped at her, not afraid of her glass at all. The long piece of glass pierced his arm, and bright red blood suddenly flowed out. Su Qianxi screamed and quickly let go. However, the drunkard took the opportunity to take the glass away and put his stinky mouth on her. Su Qianxi almost threw up and screamed, "Help, get out of my way!" "Qian." A slightly puzzled voice came from outside, and it was extremely familiar to him. Ihan, help!" Su Qianxi's voice was filled with tears. Pushing the drunkard away, she also stretched out her legs to resist his invasion. Su Qianxi's suitcase and cell phone were at the entrance of the alley. Lu Yihan immediately rushed in and saw a dirty back. His anger was ignited. Lu Yihan grabbed the man and flung him away. Then his fist landed on the man's face. However, the drunkard was obviously not a pushover. He quickly fought back, and the two of them wrestled into a ball. Su Qianxi quickly got up and was shocked. For a moment, she did not know what to do. "Qian, go first." "Ugh." Lu Yihan was punched hard and fell to the ground. Lu Yihan was a computer nerd, and there was no way he would be a match for this habitual rapist. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. Suddenly, she had an idea. She found a long piece of glass and stabbed it at the drunkard. However, the drunkard glared at Lu Yihan and twisted him. He could clearly feel the glass piercing into someone else's flesh. Su Qianxi was so stiff that she could not feel anything, staring at the scene in front of her. Lu Yihan covered the side of his abdomen. Bright red blood kept dripping from the place he covered. Just above it, there was a piece of glass sticking out, which was shocking to see. Seeing this, the drunkard was shocked. He pushed Lu Yihan away and ran away. As the drunkard ran away, Su Qianxi could not hold it anymore. Overwhelming fear swept over her, as if there was a hand pressing her to the ground. She did not know what to do. Chapter 229. She killed someone, and it was her best friend who had been killed. What to do? What to do? Su Qianxi's vision blurred. She opened her mouth, trying to breathe, but her throat was choked. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she lifted Lu Yihan up and let him lean on her shoulder. Feeling his pain, Su Qianxi's heart was terribly empty. Tears kept flowing, blurring her vision. "Hang in there. I'll take you to the hospital." "Hang in there." Sobbing, she almost couldn't hold back and burst into tears. Nothing could happen to him. Nothing could happen to him. However, before he reached the end of the alley, Lu Yihan could no longer support himself and fell down. Su Qianxi was dragged by his weight and fell uncontrollably, almost crushing him. Screaming, she finally couldn't hold it in and cried out, "Lu Yihan, don't die, you can't die." Lu Yihan covered his abdomen and said helplessly, "Silly, it's not my heart. I won't die." "But it really hurts." Seeing that he was still in the mood to joke, Su Qianxi let out a sigh of relief. She wiped her tears and stood up. "I'll go get someone. Hang in there. Don't die, don't die." She quickly ran away. Lu Yihan's consciousness gradually blurred. Inadvertently, he seemed to see a figure standing by the window, not far away, looking at him with a piercing gaze. It was already 10 minutes later when they arrived at the hospital. After some emergency treatment, Lu Yihan's life was no longer in danger. Fortunately, although the glass had pierced 3 centimeters into his abdomen, it just avoided his intestines and did not cause any irreparable damage. Hearing the news, Su Qianxi finally felt relieved. The phone rang. It was Li Xiqing. "Not home yet?" Li Xiqing's first sentence was. Su Qianxi looked at the time. It was already past 9 p.m. Nanny Rong had just called her 3 times, saying that she had something to do and asked her to get off work. She did not expect that the news had reached Li Xiqing. Hearing his voice, her heart, which had been frightened for a long time, suddenly calmed down. "Go back early. Nanny Rong is very worried about you." He was worried about her, too. Su Qianxi pursed her lips, feeling wronged. She had so many things to say to him, but he was in the U.S. "When are you coming back?" Hearing the grievance in her voice, Li Xiqing curled his lips, feeling a little better after a few days of depression. He responded in a low voice and said calmly, "Tomorrow. Are you still in New York?" "Yes, teacher has passed away. As his disciple, I should help him with his funeral arrangements." Old Mr. Sterry's funeral was today. Unfortunately, her meet and greet was tomorrow. It would take at least 12 hours to get from New York to Kingstown. That would be difficult. Thinking that he might not be able to make it back in time, he felt a bit guilty and added, "Have a good rest. I will try my best to be there for the press conference tomorrow night." "Oh." She was a bit disappointed. "Then I'll wait for you to come back." "Diamond." Someone on the other side of the phone called his English name. "Okay," he answered. "Go back early and wait for me. When I get back, let's hold a wedding. How about it? Make up the wedding?" Su Qianxi was dazed, thinking that when she married him, it was just a simple dinner with 2 families, which was a bit shabby. However, she did not expect that it was Li Xiqing who brought it up first. She was ecstatic, but she pretended to be reserved. "Is that necessary?" "Yes, I want everyone to know that you are Li Xiqing's wife." Chapter 2:30. Li Xiqing's eyes were filled with affection. After saying goodbye and hanging up, he found there were 2 missed calls and a text message. It was from Tang Minjing. "How about we talk?" Li Xiqing ignored it, locked the screen, and threw the phone away, turning around to continue his work. Lu Yihan's injury was not life-threatening, but it was not light either. After the surgery, Lu Yihan fell into a deep sleep. He was stabbed because he tried to save her. She could not leave him alone. However, after all, they were alone, and she was married. It was definitely not a good decision to stay with him for one night. After looking around, she found his cell phone. He pressed the power button to light up the screen, and a gentle and beautiful face appeared on it. When she was in high school, she was a bit rustic. She had an afro and dyed her nails in various colors. She liked to put a piece of gum in her mouth and enjoyed being called Sister Qian. Only he dared to correct her with a normal point of view. She was very impatient at that time, but unconsciously, he changed her into a normal person. This was a photo of her when she was in the 3rd year of high school. Her eyebrows were still a bit immature, and her chin was a bit chubby. Her hair was tied in a ponytail, and her eyes were not looking forward. The pixel was not high. 3 years ago, the pixel was not as high as today's. However, when was this photo taken? Su Qianxi was surprised to see her photo and looked at Lu Yihan on the bed. Without glasses, his facial features were clear. His slightly pale face was slightly slanted, and his breathing was even. He would use her photo as his wallpaper. What did that mean? Su Qianxi vaguely felt that she was overthinking. She shook her head and swiped the screen, only to find a password. She had no choice but to wait for Lu Yihan to wake up. However, as she waited, she fell asleep. When she woke up, she was lying on an empty bed in the ward, covered with a blanket. She suddenly woke up and looked around. It was dim, and the lights had been turned off. However, the light outside the window was breaking. She searched around and found her cell phone. It was already past 5 a.m. "Oh my God!" Su Qianxi exclaimed, waking up Lu Yihan in the next bed. He looked up. "What's wrong?" I actually slept here." She was very regretful. "God, how could I fall asleep?" Lu Yihan breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought it was something important." She was a bit annoyed and quickly thought of something. She asked, "Why am I sleeping on the bed? Did you pick me up?" "Uh-huh." Lu Yihan propped himself up with a look of disgust. "I didn't expect that after so many years you would gain weight again. You almost crushed me to death. F***ck. She couldn't help cursing. "I'm only 94 pounds. I'm not that heavy." "Oh, I thought you weighed 50 kilograms. "Shut up." She quickly put on her shoes. "Call your brother to take care of you. I have to go. I have a press conference today." "Okay." Lu Yihan nodded, but he couldn't help but feel sorry. "It wasn't easy for me to get on your good side, and I wanted to show my face at your press conference. I didn't expect that. I can't go now. There will be a chance." She rolled her eyes. "Soon, my husband will hold another big event for me." "What occasion?" "Wedding." She felt sweet inside and deliberately kept him in suspense. "I'm not telling you. I'm leaving." Seeing her leaving, Lu Yihan's eyes slightly dimmed, looking down at his cell phone. Chapter 231. The reception was very large, and the turmoil affected not only the people in the business circle, but also many people from the music festival, fashion industry, and social circles were invited. There was only one person in the whole of Kingstown who could invite so many big shots. In the whole country, there were only a handful of people who could do so. Chengyu looked at the venue design that her boss had rushed to make overnight in the United States, changing it left and right, and was very busy. The venue was set in the new villa that Li Xiqing had just bought. In the newly developed territory of the Li family, it covered a large area and was luxuriously decorated. The ground was covered with a red carpet, surrounded by delicate and bright red roses, and bright colorful glass lamps hung around, shining and blurring. There were a lot of reporters around, ready to broadcast the luxurious status of the party live on TV news and Weibo headlines. When Su Qianxi was picked up by Yang, it was already afternoon. Many people of the Li family had already arrived, sitting in the living room and chatting. Sunny, the royal stylist, dragged Su Qianxi into the makeup room and began to get ready. Just when Sunny was dressing Su Qianxi, a small head poked in. Li Weiya smiled at Su Qianxi. "Sister-in-law." Seeing it was Li Weiya, Su Qianxi smiled. "Yes." Li Weiya walked in with a smile, and Su Qianxi saw another person behind her through the mirror. Tang Mengqing. Seeing Tang Mengqing, Su Qianxi looked unhappy. Li Weiya did not notice the strangeness of Su Qianxi. She took out a box from behind her and said, "When I was shopping yesterday, I saw a lipstick color that was particularly suitable for you, so I bought it for you. You can use mine today." "Lipstick?" Sunny turned and looked over. "What color?" "Let me see." Li Weiya handed the gift box to Su Qianxi. "Sister-in-law, open it." Su Qianxi smiled. After opening the package, she found that it was a new international luxury brand. Sunny's eyes lit up. "It does suit you. Come on, try it." Then she put the lipstick on Su Qianxi's lips. Tang Mingqing's eyes sparkled. Seeing Su Qianxi put on her lipstick, she was ecstatic. Su Qianxi inadvertently glanced at the mirror and clearly saw Tang Mingqing's eyes. Her heart sank, and she felt something was wrong. Suddenly, he dodged. Wait. Sunny was stunned. What's wrong? Strange. Tang Mingqing's eyes were filled with confusion. Su Qianxi looked at them, pursed her lips, and pretended to say, Where did you buy this lipstick? Why does it smell weird? Will it? Sunny looked puzzled. No, it smells good. Don't you like it? Second sister-in-law. Li Weiya seemed to be a little disappointed. I specially picked it. This color is especially suitable for you. Seeing Li Weiya like this, Su Qianxi felt sorry for her. For this little girl, Su Qianxi still liked her. I don't dislike it. It's very pretty. Then let's try it. Without saying anything, Sunny put on Su Qianxi's mouth. After applying the lipstick, Sunny looked satisfied. Beautiful, Li Weiya shouted with amazement and envy in her eyes. Second sister-in-law is so beautiful. Don't you think so, Mingqing? Seeing the color on Su Qianxi's lips, Tang Mingqing couldn't help feeling excited. She nodded with a bright smile. Yes, very beautiful. The drama that they had prepared for so long was finally going to be released. Chapter 232. No matter how good Su Qianxi was, she would not be able to escape unscathed under such circumstances. At that time, even Li Xiqing would not be able to protect her. She would like to see how she could be so arrogant after today. Sunny did not notice Tang Mingqing's expression and kept talking to Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi, on the other hand, turned her head and saw the hatred in Tang Mingqing's eyes. No, no. Tang Mingqing's expression clearly said that she must have done something bad. Was there really something wrong with this lipstick? Su Qianxi licked it. It seemed to be a little better than regular lipstick. However, what was wrong? The person who gave it to her was Li Weiya. Li Weiya was a kind child. She would never hurt him, would she? Su Qianxi looked at Li Weiya and found that Li Weiya was looking at her with a smile. There was nothing strange. Feeling relieved, Su Qianxi let Sunny do the styling for her. Li Weiya glanced at it and was pulled out by Tang Mingqing. Weiya, the lipstick you gave to your sister-in-law was the one I gave you, right? Yes. You said that you were too embarrassed to give it to her yourself, so you asked me to do it. In fact, if you apologized to her yourself, she might forgive you. I was just scared. If she did not forgive me, I would be so embarrassed. Hearing that, Li Weiya saw Tang Mingqing's expression as usual and was extremely disappointed. She really thought of her as her best friend. When Mr. Saito was alive, he was a highly respected professor. Therefore, his funeral was attended by many people. After a series of procedures, Li Xiqing was so exhausted that he felt like he was going to fall apart. Checking the time from time to time, he felt a bit anxious. Seeing him like this, his friends knew that he had other important things to do, so they asked him to take care of other things first. However, Li Xiqing never had this habit. After finishing the funeral, he had stayed up all night. Looking at his watch, it was past 8 a.m. I have to go now. I will leave the rest to you. Why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen to the company? He shook his head and smiled gently. My wife is still waiting for me at home. The student was shocked by the smile on Li Xiqing's face. Watching Li Xiqing walk away, his eyes fell on the documents he had finished overnight. F***CK. Superman? Rushing to the airport, he looked a bit tired after not having a good rest for 2 days and nights. However, thinking that Su Qianxi was still waiting for him, all the fatigue were swept away. Soon he would be home. There were still 12 hours to go. Ding dong. He received an MMS on his phone. The sender was an unknown number. Attached text. Take a look at what kind of person your wife is, staying out at night and sleeping with another man. Seeing this, Li Xiqing's eyes became even colder. Clicking on the download, it was a photo. In the dimly lit photo, Lu Yihan was wearing a hospital gown, looking at the girl on the bed tenderly, leaning over to kiss her. That girl, it was her. He had personally picked out this dress for her. She was wearing the dress he had given her, but she was with another man. His gaze shifted downwards. Time of filming, 2 a.m. Chapter 233. The party began at 7 o'clock p.m. The melodious and artistic music spread throughout the venue. The band was in the middle of the venue, very eye-catching. Isn't that Song Yi fun? That's his personal musician, and that "Oh my God, Li Xiqing actually invited this kind of band. That's amazing." Li Xiqing's ability is really beyond our imagination. The discussion became louder and louder, but many of them were experienced people. Although surprised by Li Xiqing's generosity, they did not make a fuss. Li Xiqing was not there, so everything was arranged by Cheng Yu and hosted by Captain Li. Many big shots that were hard to see in daily life appeared in the same place. The reporters around were excited and dedicated to reporting the scene. Suddenly, the crowd let out a cry of surprise. Their gazes converged on a young and handsome man. He was holding the arm of a female companion as he walked in. A female classmate of Su Qianxi exclaimed excitedly, "Mr. O, that is O Ming, even more handsome than in the magazine." It was the girl next to him. Under the gaze of the people around, Yu Lily held O Ming's hand and smiled beautifully. Yu Lily quietly searched through the crowd, but she didn't see the figure she wanted to see. Frowning, she turned her head and found that O Ming was looking at her with a faint smile. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat and quickly looked away, not daring to look at him. O Ming approached her slightly, his hot breath on the side of her face, and whispered, "Who are you looking for?" Yu Lily felt a little uncomfortable. It was as if he already knew what she was looking for. Straightening her face, Yu Lily quickly got rid of O Ming and said confidently, "I'm looking for Su Qianxi." O Ming's evil eyes slightly narrowed, raised his eyebrows, and watched her gradually walk away. Yu Lily did not dare to relax until she walked into the inner room and saw Su Qianxi. She called, "Hi, Qianqian." Su Qianxi was standing with her grandpa and talking to an elder. Hearing Yu Lily's voice, she turned her head and smiled. "Lily, you are here." "Uh-huh." Yu Lily looked around. "Lu Yihan didn't come to your press conference?" She shook her head. "He was injured and is now in the hospital." Yu Lily was shocked and a little nervous. "Is he injured? Hit by a car? Or is he struck by lightning?" Su Qianxi briefly told her what had happened, which made Yu Lily scared. Suddenly, Yu Lily frowned and said, "I don't think it's that simple. The place where you live is surrounded by high-end buildings. The place that Li Xiqing chose will never have that kind of person. Is it possible?" Yu Lily's words made Su Qianxi's heart sink. From yesterday until now, she only thought that her luck was a little bad. However, after her reminder, Su Qianxi suddenly realized something. The place where Lu Yihan lived was far away from her home, and Lu Yihan would never go to her home for no reason. So, why'd he go to that place? Yu Lily's words were like a key that connected all the things that had been bothering her for a long time. Chapter 234. However, even if she wanted to harm her, why did she do this? Did she not want her to attend the press conference today? Or did she want her to be raped by the drunkard? Or she was not only plotting against her, but also against Lu Yihan? Lu Yihan's appearance was strange. She would have to ask him about it after the party was over. "Qianqian, it's time to go," Captain Li said. "Okay." Su Qianxi said goodbye to Yu Lily and walked in the direction of Grandpa. Yu Lily was a little worried. She picked up the phone, found Lu Yihan's cell phone, and was about to call him. However, she felt a warm breath approaching her side. Yu Lily turned her head and saw a face that was familiar to her bones. Yu Lily was so scared that she took a step back. When she saw that it was O Ming, she shouted, "Asaba, are you crazy?" O Ming ignored her and stepped closer, squinting dangerously. "Who do you want to call?" Yu Lily felt a bit guilty. Straightening her back, she shouted, "It's none of your business. Your sister-in-law's press conference is about to begin. Go." Her footsteps were hurried, and O Ming was a little displeased as he watched her escape. The sound of the conversation was very loud. Song Yifun's band only played the opening song and then left, replaced by an ordinary band. People came and went, greeting each other. Suddenly, the lights around gradually dimmed. Cheng Yu said with a smile, "Thank you for coming. Next, let's welcome our protagonists, Mrs. Li and Miss Su Qianxi." As soon as Cheng Yu's voice fell, everyone looked back. A young and beautiful woman walked into the hall with an old man's hand in hers. Everyone was amazed. Looking at the young girl, their eyes lit up. Today, Su Qianxi was wearing a light gold dress that trailed the floor. Right at the end of the skirt, there were bits and pieces of diamonds. Under the surrounding colorful glass lamps, they looked very dazzling. Her long hair was tied up, and a few strands fell on her forehead. Light makeup made her look smart and energetic. Stunning. Everyone had heard that Li Xiqing had a wife, and many even knew that his wife was very beautiful. However, they did not expect that his wife would be so beautiful. She could practically kill all the popular female stars in the entertainment industry. Captain Li Sun was very satisfied with the amazement that his granddaughter-in-law brought to the people around him. He raised his head proudly. Although his back was slightly hunched, he still looked very tall standing next to her. Holding her hand and walking to the stage, Captain Li took the microphone from her with a smile. "Thank you very much for coming. I am Li Xiqing's grandfather, Li Sun." At the scene, thunderous applause sounded. Back then, Li Sun's military exploits were illustrious, and he was in the limelight. His lightning-fast methods were truly terrifying. Who wouldn't recognize his name? It was just that she didn't expect the ruthless character of the past to be so kind and benevolent in his old age. Unfortunately, Xiqing's teacher passed away in the United States. It happened so suddenly. We wanted to change the date, but considering your schedules, although old Master Li Sun was getting on in years, he was still able to speak clearly. Many of the older, successful people looked at Li Sun with respect. This was a true famous general who wore armor and armor to protect his country. Chapter 235. Captain Li Sun not only represented the glory of the Li family, but also the existence that they had dreamed of in their childhood, a symbol of an era. It was this old man who spoke with a bit of humor, which made the audience laugh several times. Su Qianxi also smiled. Her delicate and soft facial features were lit up with a smile, stunning many people. He inadvertently glanced over and saw a fiery red figure appear below the stage. Tang Minjing was hiding in the crowd, holding a glass of juice in her hand. Seeming to notice Su Qianxi's gaze, Tang Minjing raised the glass and slightly tilted it to Su Qianxi. It was so nice to be treated like a goddess in front of so many people. The old man also treated her like a treasure. Judging from his attitude, Tang Minjing could tell that the old man liked Su Qianxi very much. However, so what? No matter how perfect a life was, there would be flaws. Tang Minjing slowly walked out of the crowd and went to a corner. In that corner was the equipment that controlled the sound system and the video on the stage. Tang Minjing was already waiting inside. Seeing Tang Minjing coming in, she asked, "Sister, are you ready?" "Yes." Hearing Tang Minjing's response, Tang Minjing was a bit excited, clenching her fists. Later, Su Qianxi will definitely say something nice. After she finishes, we will put up the video and slap her in the face. At that time, even Li Xiqing will not be able to protect her. Hearing that, Tang Minjing's beautiful eyes were filled with resentment. Even if Li Xiqing is here, she is doomed to be ruined. "Ha ha ha, great." Tang Minjing was overjoyed. "That woman has made me miserable. Not only is she hated by my father, but she also made me unable to hold my head up in school. I really don't know how such a woman married into the Li family. We are no match for this kind of woman." Tang Minjing gritted her teeth. She has the face of a vixen, but she is best at pretending to be innocent and weak, fooling everyone. I thought she was really stupid, but I did not expect that she was so cunning that she even schemed against me. Don't be angry, sister. After today, she will not be able to do anything. I saw her put on that lipstick with my own eyes. Wait a minute. Hee hee, that will be interesting. Tang Minjing's face softened. Thinking of what would happen to Su Qianxi, she felt much better. She asked, "When did you put it on?" "It's about time. She's still on stage. Let's go take a look." When the sisters walked out of the control room, they did not notice a slender figure sneaking in. Yulili originally just wanted to find a corner to make a phone call. It wasn't easy for her to sneak out, but she accidentally heard such a conversation. Video? The video that ruined Su Qianxi? Yulili raised her eyebrows, put her hand on the mouse, and started typing on the computer. In other words, even if someone accidentally barged in, there was no need to worry about being seen. No wonder he was so relaxed. Unfortunately, Lily majored in computer science. His fingers moved quickly, and after cracking the password, he quickly found the video, clicked on it, and played it. In the video, Su Qianxi was surrounded by several men. The quality was good, but the angle was not good, so it was obviously taken secretly. Those tall men pushed Su Qianxi to a corner. The man in the lead jumped at her, and the men behind him followed. Damn, NPC. So exciting. Chapter 236. In the room on the screen, there were mirrors on all sides, which seemed to be a dance studio or something like that. Oh my god. Oh my god, several men at the same time. Su Qianxi was so good at playing. However, was Su Qianxi such a person? Su Qianxi had always been soft. She looked arrogant in high school, but in fact, she bullied the weak and feared the strong. Later, she became a good girl. Based on her personality, she was definitely not the type to play this kind of game. What's more, although she heard that Li Xiqing had a bad temper, he was rich and handsome. Why do you have to play this kind of game? Lily shook her head and stared at the screen for a long time. From the details, she could see that this video was edited. Then she looked down, and the picture suddenly changed. It became a PowerPoint. The first picture was Su Qianxi chatting with Lu Yihan. The second picture was Su Qianxi smiling, and Lu Yihan's eyes under the rimless glasses were full of tenderness. The third picture was Lu Yihan and Su Qianxi sitting opposite each other. From the angle of the picture, it seemed that they were kissing more than a dozen pictures, eating, sitting opposite each other, playing. All the main characters were Lu Yihan. The smile on Lily's face had completely disappeared, and her heart seemed to be in bursts of pain. So painful, so painful. She knew that Lu Yihan liked Su Qianxi. She, Lily, never knew. So in high school, she often targeted her and bullied her. Despite this, the relationship between Su Qianxi and Lu Yihan was as strong and indestructible. Su Qianxi was insensitive and naive, thinking that it was friendship between them. But Lily knew that for Lu Yihan, it was not. The picture on the screen changed. Looking at the ambient light, it was evening. At the entrance of an alley, Su Qianxi helped Lu Yihan out, but suddenly, Lu Yihan pulled her down. On the screen, Lu Yihan was safe and sound, and Su Qianxi seemed to exclaim. With one hand on his side, she hung over him, staring at him with her eyes wide open. A few strands of hair fell on Lu Yihan's face. The picture froze, and the picture changed to a dim ward. Su Qianxi's eyes were closed, and Lu Yihan's soft eyes were gazing at her, leaning over and kissing her. Lily found herself going crazy with jealousy. Why could Su Qianxi spend so much time with him, while she could not even see his face? Why? She sniffled and resisted the urge to cry. She clenched the mouse and smashed the video. Such a video, whether it was Su Qianxi or Lu Yihan, was extremely harmful. Although she was jealous of Su Qianxi, she could not deny that she really liked that innocent and kind girl. Let's just take it as paying off the debt I owed in high school. After deleting and shredding the video, Lily confirmed that there was nothing left in the computer, and then she turned to leave. Tang Minjing and Tang Mengqing stared at Su Qianxi for a long time. After more than 10 minutes, Su Qianxi did not seem to be affected. Tang Mengqing stomped her foot. Wei Yao must have changed the lipstick. I knew the packaging was wrong. Tang Minjing gritted her teeth and whispered, "Let's go back first." Back in the control room, Tang Mengqing immediately noticed that something was wrong with the computer. Startled, she looked around and found that the video was nowhere to be found. "What should we do, sister? The video is gone." Tang Minjing heard that and quickly went to check. Sure enough, it was empty. What should we do? Should we just let her go? I don't want to. Tang Mengqing was anxious. Chapter 237. After Captain Li Sun's humorous speech, he successfully turned his attention to Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi was slender and graceful. Looking down with a smile, she looked elegant and noble. Her light golden dress accentuated her figure to the fullest. The dress was conservative but not stiff, formal but not deliberate. She looked energetic in it. Polite words were just polite words after all. What could a little girl say? She must have prepared a draft and just recited it when the time came. There were more than one or two people who thought so. Almost everyone did not have any hope. However, as soon as Su Qianxi spoke, she attracted the attention of the people around her. The reporters broadcasted the scene on Weibo. Su Qianxi's speech, posture, smile, and temperament were all praised by netizens. Old Master Li Sun clearly sensed that the crowd's initial disdain had turned into focus and admiration. He was very proud of himself. She was his granddaughter-in-law. He chose her himself. Humph! After Su Qianxi said that, the surrounding light suddenly dimmed, and the big screen on the stage where Su Qianxi was standing suddenly lit up. Melodious piano music appeared, mellow and sad. Su Qianxi was dazed. This music was elegy. Looking back, she saw a photo on the big screen. In the photo, an elegant white grand piano was placed under layers of wisteria. Golden sunlight shone through the gaps of the wisteria, embellishing the piano with gold. A girl in white was sitting in front of the piano, playing with her eyes down. Her face was a bit wet, and just behind the girl, a tall and straight figure stood behind, looking at the girl with soft eyes. Seeing such a scene, many people were slightly surprised, especially Ming, sitting below, shaking the wine glass in his hand. He couldn't help but complain, "Damn, that guy Li Xiqing really likes his wife. What about the divorce? What about the contract?" Ming touched his nose and turned to look at Yulili. Yulili looked at Su Qianxi's slender figure with envy in her eyes. Su Qianxi's life was really good. The melodious piano music continued, but the picture had changed. High in the sky, Li Xiqing kissed her with tenderness in his eyes. Su Qianxi's eyes were wide open. Obviously, she had been kissed secretly. On the beach, Su Qianxi's face was held, her lips sucked, and her cheeks were red. At the underwater restaurant, she put her hand on his shoulder and looked up at him. Her eyes were filled with happiness, one by one. The pictures flashed past, causing the surrounding reporters to exclaim that they were showing off their love. Seeing that, Tang Minjing's nails almost dug into her arms. Damn it, Tang Mingxing could not stand it anymore. Why does Li Xiqing like her so much? I don't like it. Tang Minjing snorted. He can't like her. If he liked Su Qianxi, he would never touch me. The baby in my belly is the best evidence. Tang Mingxing was a bit unsure. Looking at the images, Li Xiqing's expression looked so real and vivid. Could it be that it was all an act? He only wanted to do it for the old man to see. The old man forced him so much. Tang Mingxing was relieved. What should we do now? Chapter 238. What the? Mr. Li is so handsome. Su Qianxi is so lucky to have such a man. Su Qianxi is so lucky to have such a man. Su Qianxi's classmates all exclaimed, full of envy and jealousy. On the big screen, the image changed again, and a face appeared. Ah, Li Xiqing, so handsome. Li Xiqing appeared on the big screen with the same cold face. There was no expression on his face, but his slightly soft eyes showed that he was in a good mood. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my wife's press conference. I am Li Xiqing. His voice was deep and mellow. It was an extremely pleasant and moving voice. Seeing his face, Su Qianxi's heart raced. Wow, really handsome. And really, really handsome. Su Qianxi blushed, looking at the screen behind her. She knew that this was recorded by Li Xiqing in advance. Looking at the background, it should have been recorded in the United States. When the time comes, we will have a grand wedding. I hope you can come again. Thank you. Li Xiqing had always been a person who knew how to say nice things. This kind of thing was said by him like a news anchor. Su Qianxi couldn't help laughing. Looking up at his face, she felt sweet inside. What should she do? She felt so happy that she could die. She thought that after Li Xiqing said that, it would be the end. Unexpectedly, the expression on his face became softer, just like when he was facing her. He said, "Finally, thank you to my wife, waiting for me to come back." "Wife, what felt good?" "I will wait for you." Su Qianxi responded in a low voice, not noticing that there was a microphone in front of her. Her voice was clearly heard in the room. On the screen, Li Siqing paused and finally said, "Love you." The room was in an uproar. How could Li Siqing say such sarcastic words? Hearing this, the people around them wanted to scratch the wall and kill themselves. Dog abuse, too dog abuse. God, the world is crazy. Oming almost ate his wine glass. Did he see a ghost? When I saw it, I had the same reaction. Opposite Oming sat a young man. Because of the occasion, he was wearing a suit and leather shoes, which was rare. A pair of peach blossom eyes stared at the computer placed in front of him. His fingers gently moved as he let out a long sigh. This brat left a mess for me to clean up. He's too much. Tisk, tsk, tisk. Oming didn't give him a good look. I heard that you extorted a lot of money from Lao Air. You're just doing something and you're complaining. If I were Lao Air, I would kill you. Luo Zhan chuckled. If you don't point out, you're still a good brother. As he spoke, he pressed the enter key on the keyboard and nodded in satisfaction. Done. My mission is complete. Another 10 million. Yu Lily spat out a mouthful of wine. 10 million. Damn. She really didn't understand the world of the rich. So what if he couldn't be there? He could just arrange for an assistant to help him play the video. Did they have to invite such an expensive person just to play a video? A sky-high price for a video? Yu Lily couldn't understand. Just when all kinds of dogs were being abused, a beautiful female voice came from all directions to everyone's ears. Originally, on this day, I should not reveal the truth. Hearing that, everyone looked for the source of the voice and finally found a slender figure at the end of the crowd. Holding the microphone, Tang Minjing walked up under everyone's gaze. Many people recognized her. Back then, Tang Minjing used to be Li Siqing's secretary. But later, no one knew when she left Li's group. At this moment, Tang Minjing looked righteous. Looking at Su Qianxi, she said word by word, "But I can't help it. Mr. Li is the person I admire and like the most. I can't stand him being deceived by such a woman. Today, I will reveal the true face of this woman." The crowd was in an uproar. The true face. Chapter 239. The big screen that was fixed on Li Siqing's handsome face suddenly flickered and gradually dimmed. This kind of light, in a venue where the lights had not yet been restored, created a kind of mysterious atmosphere. Everyone looked over. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the speakers in all directions. The scream caught everyone off guard. Everyone was startled, but Tang Minjing looked more and more smug. Seeing Su Qianxi looking at her in shock, Tang Minjing pointed at the ground and mouthed to her, "Go to hell." Su Qianxi looked at Tang Minjing's confident look and felt sympathetic. Finally, looking at Tang Minjing's smug look, she slowly smiled. In her smile, there was sarcasm, sympathy, and boundless hatred. Coldness instantly filled her eyes. Coldness, as if from the boundless hell, was transmitted from Su Qianxi's eyes to Tang Minjing's heart. Tang Minjing was startled. Seeing Su Qianxi's extremely cold smile, the smile on her face disappeared. Still so arrogant at the brink of death. When the video gets to the point, I'll see how you deal with it. Feeling resentful, Tang Minjing looked away from Su Qianxi's face and fell on the big screen. On the big screen, several men pushed a woman to the corner. The leading man directly lunged at her, and the other men around him were also tempted. Such a shocking scene made everyone's eyes widen. That woman is Mrs. Li. I did not expect Mrs. Li to be so open. No, that does not seem to be Mrs. Li. The woman's face was gradually shown in close-up. Her facial features were exquisite, and she looked flirtatious and elegant, which was obviously different from Su Qianxi's charming appearance. This face was clearly, "Isn't that Secretary Tang?" Someone exclaimed. Everyone's eyes fell on Tang Minjing. Tang Minjing felt like she was struck by lightning and suddenly froze. Looking at the video that she had asked someone to edit, she had personally directed every detail and process. If one did not watch it carefully, they would never be able to tell that the video was edited. She was sure that with this video, Su Qianxi would not be able to explain herself even if she had 10 mouths. However, when she was the protagonist of the video that had boosted her confidence, she was dumbfounded. How is this possible? How could this be? Wasn't that supposed to be Su Qianxi's face? However, every detail in the video was so vivid, as if it was really her NPC that had been secretly filmed. Su Qianxi looked at Tang Minjing from afar and said coldly into the microphone, "Didn't you say that you were going to reveal my true colors? Could it be that this is my true face?" Tang Minjing's face was pale. Looking at the big screen, she felt a chill running down her spine. "It's not me, it's not me." Tang Minjing felt cold all over. "Su Qianxi, it was Su Qianxi who wanted to hurt me. Why did you hurt me?" Before he could finish his sentence, the scene changed. Chapter 240. Tang Mengqing's voice was hesitant. "But no buts. Be smart. Su Qianxi, that be *TCH. So what if the old man likes her? I am still Qin Shuhua's favorite. When the old man is dead, we will have a lot of fun." When the old man was dead, this old man was referring to old Master Li's son. Standing on the stage, Captain Li looked at Tang Minjing with disgust and disdain in his cloudy eyes. Tang Minjing seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Li Sun had always known that this girl was not a kind person, but he did not expect that she was so vicious that she always wanted him dead. Just because Qin Shuhua liked her, she wanted to marry into the Li family? Not to mention that Li Sun was still alive. Even if he was dead, he would not let the Tang family take the position of the second wife of the Li family. Condemnation, disgust, disdain, disappointment, and disbelief were all focused in one direction. Tang Minjing clearly felt the eyes of the people around her, as she stepped back and back. Her beautiful face was deathly pale. Her body trembled slightly as she murmured, "It's not me, it's not me. Why did you frame me?" No one sympathized with her. On the screen was still a photo of Tang Mengqing and Tang Minjing. In the speakers, their voices continued, "So what? If I can't get her this time, I will wait for the next time. Didn't the old man hold a press conference for her? Let's do it. At that time, I'll give them a big gift. I still have a trump card. Su Qianxi, what does she have to compete with me?" "What gift?" Tang Mengqing asked curiously. "You will know." Suddenly, the phone rang. Tang Minjing said, "I have to take a call. You go out first. You are so cautious even about your own sister." Yu Lily's voice was particularly loud in the quiet hall. However, this sound was like a small stone thrown into the lake. It immediately startled the originally quiet fish at the bottom of the lake, and the surrounding people began to whisper, "This Tang Minjing is so scary. Isn't it said that the eldest daughter of the Tang family is well-educated, gentle, and kind-hearted? Kind-hearted as hell. How did Mrs. Li offend Tang? Not only did she kill her child, but she also wants to humiliate her on such an occasion. If she succeeds, Mrs. Li will be too ashamed to see others in the future." The whispers grew louder and louder. Tang Minjing's face became paler and paler, and her legs became weaker and weaker. It can't be like this, it can't be like this. She had clearly arranged everything. She had clearly deployed everything long ago. Things should develop according to her plan, right? Why was it like this? Why? Tang Minjing was puzzled and looked at Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi's eyes fell on a corner. In that corner, Ming and Luo Zhan were sitting together. Luo Zhan? Yes, Luo Zhan. Tang Minjing was suddenly enlightened, feeling hopeless. Luo Zhan was one of Li Xiqing's few friends and one of the top hackers in the industry. Only Li Xiqing could have the face and money to hire him. In other words, what happened today was actually arranged by Li Xiqing. Chapter 241. The plane from New York to Kingstown Airport landed at 20:48 a.m. Beijing time. Yu Lily finally understood why Li Xiqing gave Luo Zhan the 10 million yuan. 10 million. However, since Tang Minjing could reap what she had sown, the 10 million was well worth it. She was secretly shocked by Li Xiqing's means and envious of Su Qianxi. She had such a man who loved her and a male best friend who protected her so much. Su Qianxi's fate was much better than hers, and she, looking at Ming, Yu Lily felt unspeakable bitterness in her heart. Between people, there could really be such a big gap, such a big gap. Oming was talking to Luo Zhan. He seemed to feel Yu Lily's gaze and looked over. Seeing her obviously unhappy face, he slightly approached and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Yu Lily pursed her lips and decided to ignore him. Oming raised his eyebrows, feeling a little inexplicable. He cheekily approached her and kissed her on the cheek. "Not happy." Yu Lily looked disgusted and wiped her lips with her hand. "Is it dirty?" "It's not like I haven't tried dirtier things." Oming curled his lips. "Let's try it later." "Go away." Yu Lily felt disgusted. This man was so disgusting. Obscene. Shameless. Oming narrowed his eyes. Without saying a word, he put his arm around her waist and forced her to sit next to him. They put the two chairs next to each other, and the two of them leaned against each other intimately. Yu Lily wanted to escape, but Oming quickly held her down and whispered, "If you run away once, I will do it 10 times tonight. You try?" His voice was evil, with a warning that could not be ignored. She knew that he was absolutely not joking. Yu Lily suddenly became quiet. Suddenly thinking of something, she asked, "What if I don't run away?" "Then do it once." But for how long, he did not know. Yu Lily did not know what he was thinking and was held by him obediently. Oming was very satisfied and considerately helped her with the dishes. "Let's eat." "Oh." Tang Minjing couldn't stand it anymore and sat on the ground. The floor was covered with a thick carpet. It wouldn't hurt if he fell on his, but it was extremely embarrassing. Tang Minjing wanted to stand up, but her legs were weak. "Oh, my daughter." A crying voice came from afar. A slightly fat, middle-aged woman ran over, crying. Seeing Tang Minjing sitting on the ground, she shouted, "My daughter, why are you sitting on the ground? You are hurting the baby in your belly." This sound was more like a bomb that startled the entire place, causing an uproar in the crowd. The child in her belly? Tang Minjing was pregnant? Mrs. Tang ran over and helped Tang Minjing up. She grabbed the microphone that Tang Minjing had dropped on the ground and shouted, "Qin Shuhua, come out. Let's have a talk." Qin Shuhua was the name of Li Siqing's mother. "Your second son got my daughter pregnant. Don't you have to take responsibility?" Mrs. Tang's voice was so loud that it was deafening. Qin Shuhua was chatting with a group of relatives and friends in the inner room, not noticing the chaos outside. Hearing the noise, she ran out and saw Tang Minjing in a daze. Feeling heartbroken, she hurried over and asked, "What happened?" If she had been more insistent, Li Siqing would not have married her. Tang Minjing cried even louder and said, "If you don't believe me, I won't get up. The baby in my belly is really Brother Siqing's." "It's true. Is that so?" A cold voice passed through the crowd and came from afar. Everyone turned to the source of the voice and saw a tall, travel-worn figure standing at the entrance of the venue. Chapter 243. The man was tall and straight, tall and handsome. Just by standing there, he had an irresistible charm. He stepped into the hall, expressionless and dressed formally. He seemed to be surrounded by a cold aura. However, when Su Qianxi saw that figure, there seemed to be something in her heart that was quickly fermenting and out of control. The bitterness and sweetness suddenly converged in her heart and turned into a strong sense of joy, directing her to run in that direction. Seeing her, Li Siqing's cold eyes softened a bit, and he opened his arms to her. Su Qianxi directly ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. The warm embrace made the coldness in Li Siqing's eyes dissipate a bit. Su Qianxi hugged him and said happily, "You're back." "Yes, I'm back." His voice was deep and mellow, like the sound of a top-notch cello being played slowly. Su Qianxi hugged him and looked up at his face. Li Siqing seemed to be very tired recently. His originally clean eyes were blue. In just a few days in the United States, his face seemed to be sharper and colder. He had lost a lot of weight. Su Qianxi felt sorry for him and stroked his face. "Are you very tired?" Li Siqing held her hand and kissed it gently. "I don't feel tired when I see you." Oh, Captain Li exclaimed with a serious face. "Young man, be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding people couldn't help but chuckle. Tis TSK. It hurts my eyes. Luo Zhan looked resentful. Brother, it's inhumane to show off to a dog. Do you know that? What a show of affection. Oming was secretly jealous and looked at Yu Lily. Let's do it too. Yu Lily slapped him away. Get out. Mrs. Tang was furious. With her hands on her hips, she picked up the microphone and shouted, Li Xiqing, you're back at the right time. Let's talk about what you mean. Li Xiqing narrowed his eyes and pulled Su Qianxi closer. Seeing Mrs. Tang's reaction, Qin Shuhua pulled her son and said, It's time to talk. What's going on with you? Why is Tang Minjing suddenly pregnant? Qin Shuhua's attitude was undoubtedly clear. She trusted Tang Minjing. Captain Li's face darkened. He yelled, Shuhua, get out of the way. Let Xiqing handle this himself. But come back. Qin Shuhua fell silent and walked toward Captain Li. Brother Xiqing. Seeing that Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing were so close, Tang Minjing was extremely jealous. However, she still pretended to be pitiful and looked at Li Xiqing. I'm sorry. I should not have kept the baby without telling you. Yes. He looked at her coldly without any warmth in his eyes. You can keep your child if you want. Tang Minjing gritted her teeth, stood up and said, This is also your child. You are the father of the child, aren't you? Li Xiqing suddenly smiled. His smile was like a flash in the pan, eye-catching. Regardless of whether it was the Li clan, the Tang clan, or the guests who had come to attend the meet and greet today, they were all baffled. However, although Li Xiqing was smiling, his smile was as cold as the wind. Chapter 244. Li Xiqing slowly said, When I was 18 at my birthday party, you pretended to be drunk and climbed into my bed, trying to seduce me. I asked Lu Sa to send you back. After that, I did not say a word to anyone else. It had been 8 years since she was 18. Tang Minjing's face turned pale, not knowing why he would suddenly bring up the past. When I was 20, you pretended to sprain your ankle and asked me to send you home, but you deliberately claimed that you're my girlfriend, making my mother think that we were close. I did not clarify it and kept my distance from you. Last year, I went on a business trip to Australia. At a party, you deliberately asked your male classmate to provoke me, wanted me to fight with him for you. After that failed, you sent someone to block my car, just to get me to give you an explanation. This year on my wedding night, you drugged me and tried to seduce me into your room. After you failed, you framed my wife, trying to make me hate her and distance myself from her. After that, you deliberately came to my door to remind me. I just didn't want to pursue the matter. The more Tang Minjing listened, the paler her face became. It turned out that he knew everything. But why? How'd he know that? She had done it so discreetly. F***ck me. That's too shameless. Yu Lily shouted loudly, and many people chimed in. Mr. Li would never lie, and this woman did not deny it at all. What happened to being a well-bred lady? What happened to being intellectual and generous? You can't judge a book by its cover. It really does seem to be the case. Tang Minjing's body became cold, and her face became pale. He looked at her coldly from the corner of his eyes and said coldly, A few months ago, you hired someone to instruct Coach Jean to violate my wife, causing my first child to be aborted before it was even discovered. Tang Minjing almost fell, but Mrs. Tang caught her in time. As if he did not notice her emotional breakdown, he continued, 3 months ago, on a business trip to Australia, you got drunk and tried to seduce me to stay with you. You tried to drag me into your room. I was in a hurry to go back to China, so I asked Cheng Yu to help you sober up. However, you drove her away and went into a room with a strange man. As soon as he said that, the crowd went into an uproar. 3 months ago, and Tang Minjing's baby was 3 months old, which meant nonsense. Tang Minjing was hysterical. It's you. It's you. I'll know it's you even if you turn into ashes. Don't try to lie to me. Li Xiqing curled his lips. I was already on the plane back home. How could I have a child with you? No. Tang Minjing looked like she was in pain, but her tone was firm. It is you. Except for you, I will not be with any other man. Tang Minjing sobbed and begged, Brother Xiqing, please let them go first. We could talk in private, okay? Too many things were involved in this matter. Tang Minjing was scared. Tang Jinghao couldn't afford to lose face. There were so many reporters around, and the gossip must have spread. She had to stop the situation before it was over. However, Li Xiqing did not cooperate with her. Chapter 245. Tang Minjing could not hold it anymore and burst into tears. Nothing was more painful than being rejected by the one you loved. There is nothing more terrifying than having one's dignity crushed in front of everyone. She was still pregnant with his child. She was pregnant with his child. Tang Minjing cried, which made many soft-hearted women sympathize with her. However, there must be something hateful about a poor person, someone in the crowd said. Tang Minjing cried even louder. Brother Xiqing, it doesn't matter if you don't want to admit it. The baby in my belly is the flesh and blood of the Li family. He's your son. No matter how much you hate me and don't want to talk to me, this is an undeniable fact. This is Li Xiqing's first child, his first son, your eldest son. Su Qianxi held Li Xiqing's hand tightly, feeling a bit uneasy. She looked up at him. Was what Tang Minjing said true? Li Xiqing noticed her little movement, held her hand tightly, and whispered, "Do you believe me?" His voice was very low. Only the two of them could hear it. Su Qianxi looked at his cold and calm face, feeling a bit absent-minded. In her mind, the ambiguous voice on the phone kept echoing with Tang Minjing's obsession with Li Xiqing. It was impossible for her to fool around outside. Su Qianxi firmly believed that. However, Li Xiqing said it was not true. Who was telling the truth? Do you believe me? Do you? Don't you? Li Xiqing's eyes dimmed. Su Qianxi was silent for a few seconds and nodded. I believe you. She had to believe him. As long as she believed it, he was not, wasn't he? Su Qianxi held his hand tightly, looked up at Tang Minjing, and said loudly, "Then, let's do a DNA test. Yes or no, they would know after a test. Nothing is more convincing than the truth, isn't it?" Luo Zhan heard that and clapped his hands. Blood test. We will know after a test. If our second son liked you, how could he have married our sister-in-law? The truth always hurt. There was resentment in Tang Minjing's eyes. Seeing Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing holding hands, she couldn't help feeling jealous. Originally, this should have belonged to her. She should be the one who was publicly despised and humiliated. "Oh, my daughter," Mrs. Tang cried out. "Why did I end up with such a bad man? He looks like a decent man, but in fact, he abandoned me. He's so shameless." "You can't talk nonsense like that." Oming finally spoke. His tall figure came into view, and the corners of his eyes were slightly raised. "No one knows better than me what kind of person Li Xiqing is. Are you afraid to let your daughter do a DNA test?" Su Qianxi asked. "Yeah, you don't dare anymore, right?" "Tisk TSK. She's asking for it. She just got pregnant and blamed it on Li Xiqing. It's terrible. Li Xiqing is so miserable." "Well, I knew Miss Tang loves Mr. Li." Tang Minjing covered her belly and cried even harder. "Li Xiqing, you don't want her child, but I do." "What do you mean? You don't dare to do a test? You're afraid of being exposed." With tears in her eyes, Tang Minjing stared at Su Qianxi and yelled, "The child has not been born yet. How can we do a test?" "We all know what kind of person he is." "Yes." "Humph." Tang Minjing sneered with red eyes. "I will not use my child's life for your experiment. He is his child, that is for sure. We can try another way," Oh Ming suggested. "What way?" "A lie detector." He looked at Tang Minjing. "Do you dare?" Chapter 247. Yes, why wouldn't I? Mrs. Tang immediately shouted. "My Tang Minjing has only had one man. She's not like that bitch. She's always been with other men. It's a good thing she lost the baby. Otherwise, the baby wouldn't even know who the father is." Hearing that, Su Qianxi was furious. When she was about to retort, she heard someone yell behind her, "Watch your mouth." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Song Yifan walking out with a gloomy face. With such manners, No wonder you have such a shameless daughter. Hearing Song Yifun's words, Mrs. Tang was also enraged. She yelled, "Who do you think you are? My daughter is at least polite. She's a bastard whose parents do not even know where she is." Song Yifan was so angry that he almost hit Mrs. Tang. Instinctively, he retorted, "Who said that? I am her father." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of breathing could be heard from the surroundings. Su Qianxi was also dazed, looking at Song Yifan. After Song Yifan said that, he suddenly felt that it was inappropriate. However, looking at Su Qianxi's shocked eyes, he felt a bit happy and said, "I, Song Yifan, am Su Qianxi's father. No matter if she recognizes me or not, she is my daughter." Damn, that's crazy. Luo Zhan was the first to yell. Even the business tycoons who were used to seeing a storm felt it was a bit unbelievable. With Song Yifan's current fame and reputation, it was obviously unwise for him to suddenly have an affair with an illegitimate daughter. At the very least, his reputation would be shaken, and at the very worst, his reputation would be ruined. Everything he had worked so hard for over the years could be ruined because of this. Crazy, this was crazy. No wonder Song Yifan would lead his band to this performance. It turned out that there was another reason behind it. Song Yifan did not seem to notice the shock he had caused. With a warning tone, he stared at Mrs. Tang and said, "Whoever dares to bully my daughter will have to go through me first." Mrs. Tang was startled by his attitude and was speechless for a moment. The surrounding reporters immediately buzzed like flies, fighting to be the first to spread this explosive news. Within a few minutes, a resounding new title appeared on Weibo, a shocking reversal. The famous pianist Song Yifan is the father-in-law of the Li family? Li Xiqing, I only have one question for you. What is your relationship with Tang Minjing? Song Yifan sounded very tough. Does her child have anything to do with you? More than 100 eyes fell on them. Li Xiqing looked calm and said firmly, "It's okay." It was the expected answer. She held his hand, but he gently pulled her into his arms. Leaning against his chest, she clearly felt his chest vibrate. His deep and mellow voice came slowly. "I, Li Xiqing, have only had one woman." Bah! Mrs. Tang was furious. She rushed up and slapped Mrs. Tang. Li Xiqing's eyes darkened, and he moved sideways to protect her. But she was slapped in the back. The dull sound seemed to have hit her heart, making her tremble. Mrs. Tang missed and was furious. She tried to slap Su Qianxi again. However, Li Xiqing caught her hand and gave her a cold look. "Pa." Chapter 248. How dare you hit me? Mrs. Tang screamed in shock and subconsciously wanted to hit back. However, before she could do anything, Li Xiqing pushed her hand away. Mrs. Tang stumbled back a few steps and almost fell. Standing still, she looked at Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi in disbelief. Mrs. Tang was exasperated. "I am your elder, and this is how you treat your elders." With a slap and a shove, Mrs. Tang suddenly felt humiliated. How could these two youngsters treat her like this? "Elder." Su Qianxi looked contemptuous. An elder that the youngsters admire is called an elder. "You are an old hooligan." "Great." A sudden cheer came from the crowd. Old Master Li's eyes were also filled with satisfaction. He praised, "Well said." With Captain Li taking the lead, more and more people followed suit. Mrs. Tang's face turned pale as she gritted her teeth. "Don't go too far." A voice came. Looking back, Tang Minjing was furious, but she suddenly frowned. His face turned pale without warning, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. As he spoke, he was already half bent over. "Mom, my stomach hurts." When Tang Minjing was sent to the hospital, no one from the Li family went there. Mrs. Tang was swearing in the hospital. When Tang Jinghao arrived, he heard his wife's swearing. He was so angry that he slapped her hard in the face. "Shame on you. Who asked you to go to that kind of place? How stupid." Tang Jinghao was furious. "I really regret letting you marry into the Tang family. You three are a disgrace to the Tang family." Being slapped, Mrs. Tang was dazed at first and then cried hysterically. "Your daughter and wife were bullied. and you did not let us bully them. Why did you come back to hit your wife? Tang Jinghao, you bastard! Shut up. Tang Jinghao's face was dark. Idiot. Who asked you to go to that kind of place? Do you still remember what you wrote about us on Weibo? Both daughters of the Tang family got pregnant before marriage because of heredity. What is written here? Look at it yourself. Mrs. Tang was so scared that she didn't even dare to cry. She put a hand over her mouth and stopped crying. Because of this, the company's stock price has plummeted. In less than 3 hours, the loss is more than the previous failed investment I invested in. It's all because of you. Then what should we do now? Tell me, is Minjing really pregnant with Li Xiqing's child? Absolutely. Hearing the affirmative answer, Tang Jinghao's expression softened. That's easy. The most important thing now is to protect this child. Then, there was a fierce look in his eyes. Li Xiqing wants to destroy my company, but he is still too young. Mrs. Tang was startled. You mean Li Xiqing did this? Tang Jinghao was a little exasperated. He gritted his teeth and said, that boy has always been competing with us, but he has no reason to deal with us. Now, our backyard is on fire, and he has delivered himself to us. Mrs. Tang felt even more guilty and didn't dare to speak. Chapter 249. The meet-and-greet session ended quickly. Captain Li, Qin Shuhua, and other relatives went back together, and the other guests had left. Ming, Yu Lily, Luo Zhan, and Cheng Yu stayed and found a clean room to sit down with the couple. Cheng Yu, help Luo Zhan find the hotel where we stayed that day and get the surveillance records of that time. Yes. Luo Zhan, help me get the boarding information for that day. Okay. Ming, lie detector, right? Leave it to me. No. Li Xiqing looked at Su Qianxi and said, I want you to help me prove my innocence. My wife doesn't seem to trust me, does she? Su Qianxi heard this and felt a bit guilty. She didn't trust her? She wanted to, but Tang Minjing really didn't look like she was lying. Hey, Ming exclaimed. Since when did you care about other people's opinions? When people said you were gay and impotent, you didn't want to prove your innocence. Luo Zhan also felt surprised. Luo Zhan was also amazed. That's right, sister-in-law. There used to be a lot of girls who confessed to him, but he always put on a cold face and scared away a lot of girls. Also, he hugged me again and became my rumored boyfriend from then on. F***CK. This handsome guy is so straight that he can't be any more straight. From then on, he had to face all kinds of gay looks from all kinds of girls. Do you know how painful that feeling is? Luo Zhan looked sad and angry. His words and actions were extremely similar to Lu Yihan's. Su Qianxi chuckled, and, at the same time, she thought of Lu Yihan. He was injured to save her, and she didn't know how he was doing in hospital alone. Ming also tried to smooth things over. He raised his eyebrows and said, he didn't have a girlfriend when he was in school. After he started his business, he was like a monk, either chanting scriptures or eating vegetarian food every day. When I heard that he listened to the old man and married you, I thought I didn't expect him to kill someone. Although the child was not saved, at least it proves that he is not gay or impotent, right? As he said that, he raised his eyebrows at Li Xiqing, as if to say, how about it? I'm a good friend, right? Su Qianxi smiled and nodded. Yes. He finally breathed a sigh of relief and took her hand. Let's go home. Hey. Throw it away after using it? At least treat us to a meal. Luo Zhan shouted. However, Li Xiqing simply ignored it. Luo Zhan looked at Ming indignantly and said, F***CK, you only care about the opposite sex. Ming also took Yu Lily's hand and smiled wickedly. Let's go home and sleep. Luo Zhan, boo-hoo. There's no justice in this world. Inhumane. You're abusing me just because of a disagreement. I want to protest. Back home, Su Qianxi gradually blushed. Today, she didn't do it, and no one bothered her. Could it be? Ugh. So embarrassing, Li Xiqing sensed that something was wrong with her. He leaned closer and whispered, What are you thinking about? No. She stuttered. Seeing the teasing smile on his face, she blushed all the way down to her neck. That's right, Li Xiqing said. She angrily pulled him into the bathroom. "Take a shower first." Li Xiqing did not go in. He turned her over and pressed her against the door. His low voice had a hint of smile. "After the shower, what about after?" After. Su Qianxi blushed even more and pushed him in. "Shower first." Li Xiqing chuckled and said, "Yes, ma'am." Dash. Chapter 250. In the bathroom, the sound of running water came, and Su Qianxi couldn't help feeling nervous. Deep breath, exhale, inhale. When Li Xiqing came out, he was only wrapped in a bath towel. This was his habit. He never wiped the water off his body. His slightly curly black hair was still dripping water, and his wheat-colored skin glowed seductively under the warm yellow light of the bedroom. "Wow, so handsome." Su Qianxi blushed, holding the bathrobe and rubbing against him. His entire body, inside and out, had been washed clean. She had never taken a shower so seriously. After she was done, she even put some body lotion on. However, thinking that Li Xiqing was very likely to bite her, she wiped the body lotion off. Thinking of the previous failures, Su Qianxi couldn't help feeling nervous. Taking another deep breath in the mirror, she finally walked out of the bathroom with a nervous and perturbed mood. When she came out, the light had been adjusted to a romantic dust color. The white quilt on the bed was arched up. It was Li Xiqing. "Phew. Don't be nervous." Su Qianxi stepped forward, carefully lifted the quilt, and lay down. However, she found that the man had fallen asleep. Oh, Su Qianxi suddenly felt that she had prepared for nothing. In this situation, he actually fell asleep? She reached out and put her arms around his waist. Li Xiqing had put on a silk nightgown. It was thin and stuck to his body, outlining his well-defined muscles. At this moment, his eyes were closed, and his breathing was even. He was sleeping very, very deeply, thinking of how he had just rushed back, with dark circles under his eyes and sunken cheeks. Su Qianxi thought. He was probably exhausted. Su Qianxi stared at his sleeping face, slowly looking down from his eyebrows. His dark eyebrows, closed eyes, and 2 rows of thick black eyelashes, so beautiful. Su Qianxi watched and did not know when she fell asleep. Perhaps because Li Xiqing's arms were warmer, Su Qianxi couldn't help burrowing into his arms. In the middle of the night, Li Xiqing was woken up by her. Seeing that she was sleeping like a child, he smiled, adjusted her sleeping position, closed his eyes, and fell asleep with her. The effect of the press conference was very significant. Almost the entire Kingstown and even the entire country knew who Su Qianxi was. However, Su Qianxi's name had not only spread out, but there were also all kinds of rumors. For example, the relationship between Tang Minjing and Li Xiqing. Another example was the relationship between the Tang and Li families. Another example was the relationship between Su Qianxi and Song Yifan. Rong Anna never liked to read the newspaper at breakfast. However, when she saw the photo and the title of the headline, she couldn't help but be attracted. He reached for it and read the title aloud. Explosive. International Song is the father-in-law of the Li family. The attached photo was a photo of Song Yifan and Su Qianxi at the party. The two were standing a bit apart, and Song Yifan looked at Su Qianxi with obvious tenderness. Footsteps came from upstairs. Rong Anna took a bite of the sandwich and looked at the figure coming this way. Her long hair was combed into an elegant and gentlewoman's bun. She wore a close-fitting long chong sam embroidered with crimson-purple flowers that made her already noble and aloof woman look even more beautiful and breathtaking. Chapter 251. There was no class the next morning, so she did not set the alarm clock. When she woke up, it was already past 9 a.m. Opening her eyes, she saw Li Xiqing's handsome face in deep sleep. His skin was smooth and delicate, and she could barely see any pores. His arm was still on her body, and his waist was a bit sore. She carefully turned sideways, reached out, and gently held his arm, lifted it up, and moved it away. However, when she was about to put his hand down, his hand suddenly went down and wrapped around her waist. Li Xiqing held her tightly in his arms. Before she had time to be surprised, her red lips were sealed. Being kissed, Su Qianxi suddenly woke up. Awake. His voice was a bit hoarse, with a hint of drowsiness. Completely awake. Li Xiqing saw her dazed look and brushed her long hair away from her face. I was too tired last night, and now. His big hand slid down from the side of her face and easily lifted her silk nightgown. Su Qianxi was well prepared last night and did not wear any underwear. She suddenly shivered, and her sensitive body subconsciously curled up. Don't be afraid. Li Xiqing turned over and gently kissed her lips. I'll be gentle. Su Qianxi blushed again. Looking at him, she inexplicably thought of a saying. A man's desire is the strongest in the morning. His rough, big hand covered her face and slowly slid down, rubbing her neck and collarbone. Su Qianxi shivered sensitively and could not help looking up. However, she inadvertently caught a glimpse of his burning eyes. His innate cold eyes were tinged with an obvious fire, like the eyes of a hunting wolf that had seen a little white rabbit, with a hint of mockery and desire. Under his gaze, Su Qianxi wanted to turn into an ostrich and bury herself in the quilt. Shrinking her neck, she blushed and looked away. Don't look at me. Her voice was incredibly flirtatious. Su Qianxi heard her own voice and was startled. Was it really her voice? Why did it sound like she was deliberately making love to him? Li Xiqing's eyes became darker. He stopped teasing her and chuckled. Leaning down, he kissed her face and neck. The wet feeling slowly moved down, and she felt uncomfortable all over. Involuntarily, she lifted her legs and climbed onto his body. Her nightgown was peeled off, and she clearly felt his big hand pass through her back. His slightly calloused palm gently rubbed the delicate skin on her back, bringing with it tiny particles. Uncomfortable. This feeling was too unbearable. Su Qianxi felt uncomfortable, but she couldn't tell exactly what was wrong. Unable to help herself, she twisted her body and looked at him with blurred eyes. She whispered, Mr. Li. Li Xiqing paused and pressed his whole body against hers. He whispered dangerously, What did you call me? Su Qianxi knew she called him the wrong way, but she had called him that for so many years. How could she change it so easily? Under his gaze, she finally corrected herself. Honey. Yes, what's up? Li Xiqing curled his lips in satisfaction. Uncomfortable, Li Xiqing's big hand moved down and found that she was already deeply in love with him. Chapter 252. Su Qianxi realized it and immediately bit her lower lip, closing her mouth. However, the waves of numbness coming from her lower body caused her to be utterly defeated. Lu Yihan heard it and felt something was wrong. He asked, What's wrong, Qianqian? Did something happen? Su Qianxi wanted to speak, but he was moving more and more forcefully. Biting her lower lip, she arched her back and put her hands on his back, her nails deeply embedded in his flesh. Qianqian. Lu Yihan panicked and sat up on the bed. Don't scare me. Hello? Li Xiqing worked hard and whispered in her ear, Tell him what you're doing. Su Qianxi gritted her teeth and slowly moved up and down with him. The king-sized bed gently swayed with their movements, and the man's unrestrained, low breathing was clearly heard on the other side of the phone. Lu Yihan felt like he was going crazy. He had a bad feeling in his heart and shouted, Qianqian, where are you? I'm coming for you. Talk to me. Hearing his voice, Su Qianxi knew that he was really anxious. Biting her lower lip, she wanted to speak, but the man on top of her kept accelerating, moving so fast that she almost had no time to breathe. Qianqian. Lu Yihan had already pulled out the needle in his hand. Without even putting on his shoes, he got out of bed and rushed out. A young nurse saw him and quickly stopped him. Sir, you can't run around. The wound is not healed yet. Su Qianxi heard it and knew what was going on. She opened her mouth and wanted to speak, but when she let go of her lower lip, the words turned into a light moan and were clearly transmitted to the phone. Lu Yihan was silent. Su Qianxi gasped and said intermittently, I'm fine. Lu Yihan did not speak again. Li Xiqing curled his lips in satisfaction and hung up the phone. Throwing the phone on the bedside table, He moved even harder. Finally, there was no one to disturb them. Li Xiqing put his big hand on her back and helped her sit on top of him. Wet kisses on her neck, he whispered, "Say it. I want to hear it." This position was too deep, and Su Qianxi was about to burst into tears. She shouted, "It hurts! Get out, it hurts!" Holding her, he said in a low voice with a hint of danger, "If it hurts, scream." Su Qianxi finally couldn't take it anymore and let out a sound that made her extremely ashamed. Li Xiqing was getting more and more aroused. He turned over and pressed her down, lifting her legs high and thrusting hard. Seeing her emotional expression, Li Xiqing subconsciously thought of Liu Yihan. When he was in New York, he had received a large amount of information through a phone call with a lot of care and concern. The video that Tang Minjing edited certainly meant to frame Su Qianxi. However, if she had not been so close to Liu Yihan, how could Tang Minjing have collected so many crimes? It was very painful. However, it only stimulated the beastly nature of the man. Su Qianxi screamed and hugged him tightly. Her mind was blank, but she heard his deep and mellow voice. "If Liu Yihan did this to you, would you call him that?" His voice was low and deep, filled with jealousy. Chapter 253. Opening her legs, Li Xiqing put her legs on his shoulder. Seeing that, he felt sorry for her and blamed himself. At the same time, there was an uncontrollable fire burning in him. "Calm down, Li Xiqing." Taking a deep breath, Li Xiqing picked up a bit of ointment and gently applied it. The cold feeling made the pain go away. She still covered her face with the pillow and did not move it away. He restrained himself. After applying the medicine, he took away her pillow and said, "Okay, put on your clothes and go down to dinner." Su Qianxi looked at him and said, "Okay, get dressed and go down to dinner." Getting up, he opened the closet and picked out a white sleeveless dress. It was already autumn. Thinking about it, Li Xiqing found a light yellow dress with mid-sleeves. Rummaging through his closet, he found some underwear and turned around. Su Qianxi was speechless. Why did it feel so? Seeing him holding her clothes, "I'll do it myself. I'll help you." "No, you go out. I'll do it myself." Su Qianxi had already pulled the quilt over herself. Blushing, she reached out and took the bra from his hand. He did not care about her and lifted the quilt. As she screamed, he lifted her naked body and let her sit on him. Su Qianxi's body stiffened. Clearly feeling the heat in his body, she did not even dare to move. Li Xiqing moved closer and whispered in her ear, "I'll help you." The hot breath was on her face, and she blushed even more. Even the tips of her ears were flushed. This man was so bad. Su Qianxi found that she was being controlled by him, and there was nothing she could do. But it was so enjoyable. What should she do? Li Xiqing helped her get dressed, but his movements were a bit jerky. Along the way, Su Qianxi did not dare to look at him. Finally, she zipped up and jumped off barefoot, wanting to run away. Li Xiqing could not help but laugh. Looking at her back, he reminded her, "Shoes?" "Oh." Su Qianxi put on her shoes and went to the bathroom. Inadvertently, she looked up and found that she was wearing very conservative clothes. The collar was so high that it reached his neck, hiding all the crazy marks inside, not revealing a single trace. The length of the sleeves was also perfect for the current weather. Wiping her hands, Su Qianxi felt sweet. Li Xiqing had accepted her. This man belonged to her. She opened the door and walked out, still unable to suppress the smile on her face. Li Xiqing was also infected by her joy. His cold eyes were much softer than usual. When they walked down the stairs together, Nanny Rong looked at the time and exclaimed, "Oh, it's past 1 o'clock. Come and have dinner. It's still hot." Nanny Rong looked at the time and exclaimed, "Hey, it's already 1 o'clock." Su Qianxi blushed. Why did she feel that Nanny Rong had seen through everything? Under Nanny Rong's probing gaze, Su Qianxi only lowered her head to eat and did not dare to say anything. The phone in the villa rang. After Nanny Rong answered, her expression changed. She turned around and said, "Young master, sir is looking for you." Nanny Rong usually addressed Li Xiqing as sir. Only when they were in the old house, she would call him sir, and sir was Li Xiqing's father. Li Xiqing put down his bowl and walked over to take the phone. Dad, you brat, get back here right now. The voice was furious. After a pause, he said alone, Don't bring your wife. Su Qianxi asked what happened. Chapter 254. About 10 seconds later, he hung up and looked at Su Qianxi. What's wrong? Seeing his expression, Su Qianxi felt a bit uneasy. At this critical moment, Li Xiqing's father suddenly called. Did something happen to Tang Minjing? Nothing. You eat first. I'll take you to class. Oh. Su Qianxi looked down, but her heart felt heavy. She could not eat the delicate food in front of her. Looking up at him, she asked, What's wrong? He shook his head. He did not know. However, his father rarely lost his temper. The number of times he would yell at him, like today, was definitely not more than 3 times in his life. It was definitely not a small matter. Not wanting Su Qianxi to worry, he just shook his head. After dinner, Li Xiqing walked her to the school gate and kissed her on the forehead. Su Qianxi got out of the car and watched his car drive away. She felt more and more uneasy. On the busy campus, many students saw her and immediately came up to her. Su Qianxi, were you okay last night? Those people were too much, especially Tang Minjing's mother. How could she be the wife of a rich family? Mr. Li is not that kind of person. We all believe. Su Qianxi could not bear it anymore. Her mind was in a mess. She forced a smile and said that she was not feeling well and went to class first. Before entering the old house of the Li family, Li Xiqing could feel the pressure that was lower than normal. Lu Sa was pacing back and forth in the living room. Seeing him, she hurriedly called, Master, you're finally back. Mr. Li is waiting for you in the study. What's wrong? Li Xiqing asked. You should go in first. Miss Tang. Lu Sa hesitated, which made Li Xiqing's heart sink. Her again. Li Xiqing had already guessed what was going on. Seeing Lu Sa's hesitation, he nodded and said, I know. Don't worry. It's fine. Lu Sa looked a bit relaxed. That's good. You have to take care of Miss Tang as well. I used to think she was a nice girl, but now... How could she be so shameless now? Did she really think she could get married just because she was pregnant? Second young master is not that kind of person. Before he finished, his phone rang. It was Chengyu. Boss, I got it. Send it to the old mansion. Yes. Hanging up, Li Xiqing nodded at Lu Sa and walked into the study. Before he went in, he heard the sound of crying. Tang Minjing's eyes were red and swollen. She was hugging Mrs. Tang. Seeing Li Xiqing coming in, she seemed to be scared, shrank back, and said weakly, Brother Xiqing. Li Xiqing looked at Tang Minjing's belly. Today, she was wearing a tight black dress. Her 3-month-old belly was slightly bulging. Her oval-shaped face had now become a little rounder, and her whole body was rounder than before. Feeling his gaze, Tang Minjing touched her belly and stood behind Mrs. Tang. Mrs. Tang sneered and said in a sarcastic tone, Here comes the one who abandons me. Chapter 255. Li Xiao was very angry, which could be heard from his voice. In the study, Qin Shuhua was standing not far from Mrs. Tang. Behind Mrs. Tang was Tang Minjing, and next to her was Tang Zhenghao. Except for Tang Mingqing, everyone in the Tang family was there. Li Xiqing already knew what was going on. Looking at his father, there was no fear in his cold eyes. He asked slowly why. Li Xiao was amused and asked, Why? You did this yourself. How dare you ask why? Then, he grabbed 2 pieces of paper from the table and threw them at Li Xiqing's face. However, the paper was too light, and Li Xiqing caught it in his hand. At first glance, he saw the eye-catching title, Lie Detector Test Report. Looking down slowly, Li Xiqing skimmed through the words. His cold eyes narrowed, and a deep thought flashed through his mind. Li Xiao was so angry that his hands were trembling. Pointing at Li Xiqing, he yelled, I should have forced you to join the army. Look at your brothers. They didn't do this to me. In Li Xiao's study, there were all kinds of medals of honor hanging. That mighty and domineering military uniform clearly displayed Li Xiao's extraordinary military rank. Not only was he a major general, but even his 2 sons had done him a great job. Li Beixing had become a major at a young age, and his younger son, Li Jinan, was already a captain. Li Xiqing had been a maverick since childhood. When other children were playing with mud and peeing the bed, he began to study the map of the world, determined to be the second Columbus and discover the New World. When other children were learning to sing and dance, he held a bamboo high and yelled to defeat fascism. While other children fell in love at puberty, he was immersed in his studies. He learned everything he should and shouldn't learn in one breath. Later on, he hired several tutors, but none of them could stay. They were all scared away by his terrifying humility. Finally, when Li Xiqing graduated from college, Li Xiao wanted him to be a soldier like himself, to protect the country and do his part for the country. But this kid actually registered a company on his own without saying a word. Moreover, it was already a small-scale company with a sizable income. She had thought that she did not need to worry about Li Xiqing anymore. However, she did not expect that no matter how sensible and decent a man was, he would still make mistakes that all men would make. Li Xiao was so angry that he couldn't even eat. After reading both pages, Li Xiqing looked away and said, "Was the lie detector experiment done in front of you?" Li Xiao trembled with anger and shouted, "Do you still need to do it in front of me? This report already explains everything. So you didn't see it with your own eyes?" Li Xiqing's voice was cold. "Then why do you think she is telling the truth? You bastard." Mrs. Tang was so angry that she wanted to punch Li Xiqing, but was stopped by Tang Minjing. "Mom, don't." Tang Minjing sobbed and hugged Mrs. Tang. Xiqing. Qin Shuhua went to protect her son and said, "Watch your words. Don't you know whether you did it or not? I also heard what Ming said and asked your father to apply for a lie detector. It turned out that Minjing was not lying." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.